The prologue starts with our protagonist, Jiang Bai, running from a casino after winning a huge amount of money. But life has other plans for him, and he soon gets struck by a truck. But he doesn't die and instead wakes up in a different world with memories he has no recollection of. Just then, a voice calls out, and he is surprised to see his old self talking to him. Jiang Bai was in a high-risk casino in Macau and had just won millions, but the boss doesn't understand the meaning of fair play and demands he gives the money to him. But Jiang loves his money more than anything and will not part from it easily. He effortlessly takes down the boss and his men, but when the boss calls for backup, Jiang thinks it is better to run and dashes out of the casino, only to be struck by a speeding truck. The boss pukes as he sees Jiang's body lying in the pool of blood, and soon panic ensues, but Jiang is calm as ever. Even as he realizes he's dead, he suddenly wakes up covered in sweat. He is in his room, on his bed, but he is confused and wonders how he is alive. Jiang steps down from his bed, but he whimpers in pain as his head aches with clusters of memories, but he can't quite identify them. Suddenly his hand moves on its own and slaps him before a voice addresses him as Earth Boy and congrats him on making it to reincarnation. The voice continues and tells him he is an aquamarine, a parallel world of Earth. The voice, who calls himself God, presents Jiang with a metropolitan system that uses prestige points to get whatever one desires. And how would one get prestige points? Asks Jiang, but the self-proclaimed God has a party to attend. So he leaves Jiang hanging and says he should figure it out himself. Just then, Jiang's bullies call him out and offer him protection if he successfully does a task for them. But the timid Jiang is gone. This reincarnated Jiang doesn't have the patience, and as soon as he sees them, he lands a heavy punch on the gang leader's face, throwing him in the air. Jiang doesn't stop at one punch and keeps punching the leader and hurling abuses till the leader's face swells like a potato. His men try to stop Jiang, but seeing how furious he looks, they decide it is better not to butt in. Once Jiang is tired of punching, he asks them to run and go to whoever their boss is, and mistaking them for the underworld, he throws a challenge for their boss. As soon as the bullies hear underworld, the blood drains from their faces and they run for their lives, thinking Jiang is from the underworld. Just then, a message congratulates him on his first victory, which has rendered him 5 prestige points. Along with that, has got a free draw from the system, and out of thin air, a slot machine pops up promising various rewards for him. This is the type of opportunity he was looking for to get rich, and now that he has one, he can get away with studying advanced mathematics and gambling techniques. He pulls the lever and hopes to earn money, prestige, and power. Jiang keeps chanting mantras to get rich overnight, but when the machine shows different colors, Jiang is sure the machine is rigged. He kicks and rattles the machine till it shows a random award that grants him an autobiographic memory. He starts celebrating till he realizes what it means, and suddenly, he clasps his head as he experiences a headache. And all the memories from his childhood flash back before his eyes, and he starts crying as he remembers his mom, whom he dearly misses. He wipes off his tears and is filled with a new resolve to treat his new life better and live up to those who love him. He flicks through his memories, finds the bullies from earlier, and decides to stop their bullying. So he leaves his house and rents out another place that feels like a mansion compared to his last home. Jiang is very excited about his new place, as it is definitely an upgrade. He starts searching more about this version of himself and realizes he is still single and living a pitiful life. With his body, he can't do any underworld work, and as he's wondering what he can do, he finds an anomaly in the aquamarine world. The events that have happened on Earth do not exist in this world, which gives him an advantage, so he seizes the opportunity and decides to write a woodshed novel. And as soon as he publishes its first 3 chapters, it becomes an instant hit. It is already morning, and Jiang has finished writing 30 more chapters, but decides to upload them later as he is sleep-deprived. He doesn't realize he has created a sensation until he receives an email with an offer. He feels great after plagiarizing work from Earth and gaining glory, for which he also earns prestige points. He figures the more people read his work, the more prestige points he will earn, but first, he plans to redeem his prestige points, for which the system gives him a list to choose from. Jiang exchanges 1 prestige point for $1,000 before deciding if he wants a quantum computer or an adult doll that runs on electricity. He quickly shakes away the terrifying thought of using something that needs to be plugged in and asks the system how much the Sanda martial arts would cost him. The system tells him that the advanced course will cost him 500 prestige points, which is too high. He knows he needs to increase his pace to face the bullies, and as he thinks, he gets reminded of his autobiographic memory and wonders how much it would cost him. The system tells him it cost 100,000 points, surprising him. He decides not to waste such a costly ability, and 1 month later, he has finished writing 200 words. He finally decides to take a break and eat something other than noodles. Just then, he gets a call from his manager, whom he calls Fatty, and invites him out on a feast. The system also congratulates John for the fame and fortune he has earned, and his prestige has risen to 1,000 points, earning him a free draw. He lands with a purple reward that is a master skill, and as he's expecting to become invincible, he gets an eerie sensation and feels something crawling into his brain. Jiang soon realizes he has been rewarded with Bajikwan, a Chinese martial art form with explosive moves. He is happy with his newfound power after he puts it to the test, but it will still take time for him to get used to the bouts of headache he has to face every time he's rewarded something. He names his ability Emperor Fist. Suddenly his stomach growls, and he realizes he's late for his rendezvous with Fatty. He decides to meet him some other time and heads out to have food. As he walks towards the elevator, a gorgeous woman struts in front of him and tries to ask him if he has seen any suspicious people there. But Jiang couldn't care less and asks her to move as she's blocking his way. The woman looks dumbfounded because this is probably the first time someone has ignored her like that. So she runs to the elevator and presses her body against his, and in a seductive manner introduces herself as Yo Wei. She asks if he's new there, but Jiang tries to get his way out of there as he knows beautiful women like her always tend to bring trouble, and just as she takes his hand, forcing him to come along with her, Jiang hears someone roaring Yo's name and asking about him, and that's when Jiang knew he is in trouble. To Jiang's horror, Yo replies that he is her boyfriend. She adds that she never loved him, and he should leave them alone. The guy looks mortified and says he'll never give up on her before he turns to leave. Jiang is pleased he didn't have to do anything, but Ya seems tense about something. Jiang is nonchalant, as right now, all he can think of is food, so he excuses himself and eats to his heart's content. Suddenly his phone rings and Brother Lee from the other side screams his lungs out into Jiang's ears. He asks Jiang where he is because when he went to Jiang's place, his place had been turned topsy-turvy, and he also heard some dangerous people were looking for him. Jiang pays for the food and heads back, and on the way he meets Lee, who tells him that Song Yi's men and more than 20 thugs are waiting for him. He advises Jiang not to go back. Jiang realizes Song Yi must be the bully's brother-in-law, the king of underground boxing, and suddenly he feels an adrenaline rush in his body. He goes back to his house and grandiosely announces his entrance to the thugs waiting for him. Song Yi catches Jiang's eyes, and Jiang calls him an old man before asking what he can do for him. The apartment manager interferes and chides Jiang for talking to the young master in such a condescending tone. But Jiang is far from backing off. In fact, he pours himself a glass of wine and makes fun of the bully who ratted him out after he got beaten up by Jiang. Song Yi likes Jiang's confidence and challenges him to defeat 23 of his thugs, and then he might let Jiang go. Jiang adds fuel and invites him to be the 24th. But Song Yi isn't so naive as to get affected by a kid's words, and suddenly the thugs attack Jiang. One by one, Jiang takes down all 23 of them and is ready to face Song Yi. Even though Song Yi appears calm, he is surprised to find that Jiang is a Bajikwan practitioner. However, he is confident in his Sinbi Quan and takes Jiang by surprise when he first attacks him. The sheer speed of his fist creates a vacuum, but it is not enough to subdue Jiang, and he attacks Song Yi, bringing him to his knees. Song Yi is baffled when he realizes Jiang is no Bajikwan user but a master. Soon an epic battle between the two martial art experts, and such is their speed that they leave shadows of their movements, which makes an ordinary viewer think they are many in numbers. Song Yi soon starts getting beaten up, and Jiang lands a final blow on him, making Song Yi accept his defeat. And as per the promise, Song Yi is ready to call Jiang Big Brother, even though Song Yi is much older than Jiang. Seeing Song Yi's humbleness, Jiang confesses he is not part of the underworld, and to his surprise, Song Yi also admits he has never committed any petty offenses, let alone being a leader of thugs. But due to circumstances, he has intimidated people sometimes. Jiang looks dumbfounded at the revelation, because if this keeps up, these people won't be of any use to him. So he acts tough and says he's short of money, but Song Yi puts his arm around Jiang and says he can help him get money. Song Yi tells Jiang they have ways to make money, and as long as he's willing to help, he'll be appropriately rewarded. Jiang makes it clear that he won't do anything he doesn't wish to, and Song Yi assures him it is not like what he's thinking. Song Yi asks the manager to call the boss a old horse. He then turns to Jiang and tells him the tale of the boss. The boss had a playboy son who was in a relationship with a girl, but when he fell out of love and broke up with her, she told her uncles about what had happened. The uncles took it upon themselves to massacre the boss's men in the underworld. They'd also threatened to destroy him and his family unless someone could defeat the second uncle, known as Tan Zongming. Above Tan Zongming is his master Nalan, a mysterious man from a hidden sect. Song Yi warns Jiang not to hurt Tan Zongming as it would provoke Master Nalan, and they don't want that, as even Song Yi's master is unwilling to fight Master Nalan. Just then, the boss hurriedly makes his way in and questions Song Yi if his master has agreed to intervene. But Song Yi introduces him to Jiang as the 8-Trigram Master and vouches for his abilities. The boss was expecting an older man, but when he sees a young man standing before him, it is difficult for him to accept that. But Song Yi assures the boss and even tells him that Jiang defeated him a few moments ago. The boss is convinced and says if Jiang wins, he is ready to forego a quarter of his property, including the bar and Dragon Mansion, which is 10 million in assets. Jiang takes up the task and warns the boss that his son should take up responsibility for his actions. But for some reason, Song Yi takes him away so the boss can't hear Jiang's upright words. Nevertheless, Jiang is ready to face Tan Zong and his master. The three men visit Tan, and the boss once again tries to negotiate and promises to let his son marry his niece if he puts an end to the rivalry between the two groups. But Tan doesn't budge and mocks Song Yi for bringing a young man to fight him. Jiang takes it upon his ego and rudely challenges Tan, but he's in for a surprise when Tan lands a kick on Jiang at lightning speed. Jiang quickly recognizes the spring leg technique and matches it to his speed. Not only that, but Jiang also manages to change the flow of Tan's rhythm, astonishing Tan. After many fists and kicks, Tan loses concentration for a second, giving Jiang a window to blow the last punch at Tan. Tan coughs up blood as he recovers from that blow to his face. Suddenly, his men pull out their guns, and one of them is about to shoot Jiang when Tan subdues him and yells at him for tarnishing his image in front of a worthy opponent. Tan apologizes for that behavior and requests him to forgive the audacity of his men. The boss says he's just there to solve the problem, and Tan agrees and gives written consent to not cause any problems in the future for the boss. He also recognizes Jiang as a friend. They soon leave, and the boss takes them out to celebrate their victory over some drinks. At that moment, the system notifies Jiang that he has earned impressive points for defeating Tan and 1500 bonus prestige for the difficulty of the event. The system further alerts him of friendship points, which are awarded on the basis of the fame of the person, and because of his friendship with Song Yi, he will be provided with 23 prestige points daily. The next day, the boss transfers the promised property in Jiang's name and also gives him a car. Jiang gets a call from his manager Fatty about the publisher, but Jiang entrusts the task to him, and once he's done, the boss and Song Yi can't help but ask him if he's the famous author of the book that is already a hot deal in the market. Jiang humbly says he is the author, but he doesn't have the inspiration to write, so he shares his desire to do something else. Just as he says, the boss presents him with an offer to work in the movie industry. The boss tells Jiang how the box office is booming in China, and if Jiang's got a good script, he's guaranteed to get rich overnight. The boss then offers to give Song Yi and Jiang his established film company. Jiang thinks for a while and realizes that he can bring the Earth movies as they have not been made here in Aquamarine, and without wasting any time, accepts the offer. The boss asks for 2 million from Jiang as a processing fee, and he promises to sell the company to him legally. Jiang agrees and asks for 10 days to transfer the money. The boss invites him to see the studio, but a beautiful young woman recognizes Jiang and calls out to him when they reach there. Jiang asks the system to help him remember who the woman is. The system tells Jiang the woman's name is Lin, his cousin from a far-reaching family branch. The system also adds that he had alienated her after graduating from high school. Jiang asks her what she's doing there. Lin says she had gone to his house after learning that he had quit his job and joined a gang of shady people, so she went to his house, but the house was a mess, and he was nowhere to be found. She starts belittling the boss and Song Yi on their faces and asks Jiang if they are threatening him. But Jiang turns to Song Yi and is ready to leave with them when Lin stops him and offers her pocket money, thinking he might be in the gang due to lack of money. She also invites him to her school so she can get him a job as a librarian to keep him away from trouble, as she is worried about him. Her selfless act touches Jung, and he holds her hand to give her the money back. He assures her he has enough deposits to keep him well-fed and live comfortably. Lin is flustered as she pulls away her hand and asks him to meet her at school the next morning before leaving. Jang's face suddenly lights up as he plans something and decides to go to school the following day. Song-yi drives Jung to the school, but Jung asks him to stop some 600 meters away from the building as he wants to keep a low profile. He also advises Song-yi to change his hairstyle so he looks cool and not as rogue as he usually appears. As he approaches the gate, Lin meets him at the entrance and offers him her breakfast, saying she is not hungry. Jung can't help but notice how humble she is. All the women's staff is excited to see a handsome librarian and chit-chat among themselves about approaching Jung. By lunchtime, Jang has read many books as he feels he should soak up as much free information as he can, and Lin is surprised to see he's already read many books. She came by to give him a lunchbox she picked for him. Jung asks her if she deliberately bought the lunch for him, and Lin, lost in her thoughts, says yes before realizing what she just said, and she runs out embarrassed, yelling that it was not intentional. As Jang starts eating, he hears his name, and a male colleague shows his astonishment at Lin bringing Jang food. Jung asks the man if there is an issue. The man's name is Wang, and he warns Jang that Lin is one of the 4 major beauties of the school. One of the influential faculty members has already approached her, and as he starts enumerating his connections, Jung stuffs his mouth with food and asks him to shut up. He clears that Lin is his cousin and nothing more than that. After a long day, he finally returns home to find Wu Chen and his men at Jang's doorstep. Contrary to Jang's suspicion that they might have come to pick a fight with him, Wu Tian offers Jang 500 to break up with Yao Wei. Without much deliberation, Jang agrees, much to Wu Tian's surprise, who would say no to free money, and only Jang knows he is not actually in a relationship with Yao Wei. He grabs the suitcase full of money and happily marches home, but when someone grabs his shoulder from behind, he starts yelling but stops when he sees it is Yao Wei. She is sweating and looks apologetic for causing him trouble with Wu Tian. But Jang cannot focus on anything as he finally notices how sultry she can look. Jang quickly reminds himself that he's much older to be fawning over a young girl and regains his composure. Yao Wei wants to know how Jang got past Wu Tian. Jang confesses Wu Tian bribed him with 500 to leave her alone. Yao Wei shouts at him and questions his integrity, but when Jang blames her for getting him into such a situation, Yao Wei's demeanor changes. She says since he used her status to gain the money, it should be divided between them and asks for 400k. Jang outrightly refuses and claims it to be his. But Yao Wei isn't going to give up so easily and threatens to tell Wu Tian that Jang slept with her and told her about the money. Jang curses her as he doesn't want any trouble, and after much negotiation, they agree on a 55-45 ratio division. Once done, Yao Wei can't stop laughing. You have met such an interesting, greedy character. The next day at school, Song-yi comes to meet Jang. He has changed his hairstyle per Jang's recommendation, and he looks good. He even blushes when Jang compliments him and changes the topic by asking him when he'll come back to the underworld as people have started talking about him. He also asks for a new name of the production company, and Jang recommends Dragon Film. When Song-yi starts questioning Jang's purpose for staying in the library for so long, Jang thinks it is time for Song-yi to leave, but they get interrupted by Jang's cell phone. Jang picks up the call, and it is from Lin's roommate, who informs him that Lin has been taken by Zhang, the school scum who is after Lin. She warns Zhang that Zhang is bad news as he has done terrible things outside the school and has a terrible reputation. Jang grabs his jacket, and as he leaves the school, he asks for an address. The roommate tells him Zhang has taken Lin to the Marriott Wine Hotel. At the hotel, Zhang is forcing Lin to have lunch with him when Zhang barges in, breaking the door open. Zhang gets furious and orders his men to take care of Zhang and Song-yi. And these two men soon get surrounded by men with guns and various other dangerous weapons. Zhang provokes Zhang by referring to Lin as a piece of meat that he wishes to devour, enraging Lin. She calls him shameless, but Zhang couldn't care less and blames her for igniting such feelings in him for looking so beautiful. Zhang then signals his men to point their guns at Zhang and threatens to eliminate him if Lin doesn't listen to him and resists his advances. Seeing her cousin's life in danger, Lin asks him to stop and agrees to sleep with him. Zhang crosses the line when he asks Lin to undress in front of everybody. Lin has no choice, and with tears rolling down her cheek, she slowly starts removing her clothes amidst Zhang curling profanities. He gets distracted by Zhang's voice, who asks Lin to close her eyes and not open them no matter what, as something terrible is about to happen. Jang holds a menacing look and attacks one of the men holding a gun, and Song Yi grabs it before anybody can do anything. He then takes down another man and warns that if anybody moves, he will put a hole in his head. Jang gets perturbed and warns his men to eliminate the two men, or they'll have offended his dad, the gang leader. The men seem a bit hesitant since Song Yi has a gun, so Jang orders them to attack the men from both sides. As they do, Song Yi fires at them, ending the lives of the men who attacked him and injuring the rest. Now, with only Zhang left, Zhang walks toward him to take care of him. He kicks and punches Zhang, leaving him bleeding from various places. He then grabs Zhang's hand and squeezes his fingers till they all break, and he squirms in pain. Zhang warns him that even his dad won't be able to help him. Zhang asks Song Yi to take Zhang away while he takes off his jacket and covers Lin with it. Song Yi kicks Zhang and brutally escorts him away. Zhang doesn't let Lin open her eyes and helps her find her way out so she doesn't see the bloody mess. On their way out, he tells one of the injured men to relay the message to Zhang's dad that he will be sending back his disabled son. Once outside, Song Yi can't contain his excitement and tells Zhang that he has tied Zhang in the warehouse for his dad to find. Lin is worried for Zhang as Zhang's father sounds dangerous and proposes they go back to their hometown to hide till everything settles down. But Zhang is not done with them and says he's going to destroy them for what Zhang did. Song Yi suddenly gets serious and, in a somber tone, asks Zhang to be careful because the last known Trigram master died after getting shot by unknown assailants. But Zhang assures them he has his ways and asks Song Yi to send Lin somewhere safe as he needs some time to prepare. Once they're gone, Zhang lights a cheap cigarette and admits to himself how nervous he is because he doesn't have a plan. The man in question is too powerful and has some 300 professional snipers and ex-military personnel working under him. He realizes he doesn't stand a chance if there is a direct confrontation. As if deciding something, he calls the system to give him a draw. He plans to win something big as his life depends on it, but when he looks at the screen, his cigarette falls on the ground, and he holds a bewildered expression as he wonders if his life is over. After getting the scare of his life, the system presents him with a second draw, and explains that with the amount of prestige points Zhang owns, he can make a preliminary draw twice. Grateful for a second chance, Zhang is sure not to waste it. Meanwhile, an unknown man is talking to his grandfather, Zhang Changjiang, about a meeting with a party at the Hexang waste factory, and they are asked to bring as many men as they can. Changjiang looks confident as he has invited several national masters. Somewhere another man kneels down before Zhao Yi and tells him that Changjiang has gathered more than 200 men. Zhao Yi calls the man kneeling Wang and warns him that things are not what they seem superficially, because Master Nalin's decision to leave Zhang alone indicates something big. He calls Changjiang a fool because Changjiang has also summoned him to help him fight, but he knows well that if he does, it will negatively impact Zhao's business. He asks Wang to relay to Changjiang that Song Yi is involved with Zhang, as he knows Song Yi's master, and that man owes Zhao a favor. Zhao is looking forward to seeing how Zhang fares in this test, and if he succeeds, he might get involved. In the mountains, Song Yi's master is planning to head down to the city after spending much time in the mountains training. He is concerned about his disciple and wonders if Song Yi knows what he has got himself into. At the Hexdang waste factory, Zhang lies crying and whimpering in pain while Zhang, Song Yi, and their men wait. Finally, Changjiang arrives, and Zhang cries for his dad to save him. Changjiang is horrified to see his son crippled. From behind, an older man walks out of the shadow, and he seems to know Song Yi's master. He asks Song Yi to go back to him. Song Yi recognizes the man whose name is Zhao Shilong. He has been fighting with Song Yi's master for almost a lifetime. In a fraction of a second, he reaches beside Song Yi and lands a hard kick on him. He then holds his head and makes him bow, supposedly to teach him how to respect elders, and then punches him, knocking him out. Zhang steps in to fight Zhao, but Zhao is extremely fast on his feet. In no time, Zhang catches up to Zhao, and they both start fighting at such great speed that it is difficult to keep track of their movements with naked eyes. Song Yi soon gains consciousness, and he gets up to light a cigarette and flips Zhao as he knows very well Zhao is no match for Zhang, and as he predicted, Zhang lands a death blow on Zhao, knocking him out of his senses. Song Yi challenges Changjiang to send whoever he has got with him, but Changjiang has different plans, and after cursing them, he orders his men to shoot them. Zhang and Song Yi find themselves surrounded by armed men. Chang Jiang orders Zhang to let Zhang go, but Zhang doesn't show any mercy and orders his men to cut Zhang, and a man stabs Zhang's hand, making him wail in pain. Chang Jiang shivers in anger and asks Zhang if he has a death wish, but Zhang corrects him and says he knew Chang Jiang wouldn't let him go, so he was prepared to die from the start, and even now he can sense the sniper is waiting for Chang's orders. With his anger off the charts, Chang orders the sniper to shoot Zhang, and as the sniper does, Zhang pulls out a God of War card and activates it. Before the bullet can hit Zhang, he vanishes, and the bullet hits the ground. The sniper looks for him, but unbeknownst to him, Zhang stands behind him. While everybody looks for Zhang in the building, Zhang throws the sniper from the glass roof into the building. Chang is baffled to see Zhang on the roof. He is enjoying his newfound powers and uses them to land on Zhang. As the people try to understand what just happened, Chang whimpers, covering his face and asking his men to shoot Zhang before he gets him. Suddenly, the bullets seem to be raining on Zhang, but they do not affect him, as he uses his bare hands to disable and catch all the bullets. Chang's men soon realize Zhang is no ordinary person, as what he's doing is not possible for humans to do it. Chang calls Zhang an alien, and Zhang outrightly rejects that role and calls it lame. He then takes a serious stance and says he'll give them 3 days to compensate and provide him with a satisfactory solution, or else he'll wipe out the existence of Chang's family from the face of the earth. Many men start cheering Zhang's name and promise their utmost loyalty to him. Amid the cheering, Zhang thinks of what happened a few hours ago that changed the whole trajectory. He drew a random reward that granted him the God of War card, which makes the user of that card invincible for 30 seconds, with no after effects, exactly what Zhang needed at that point in time. Wang calls Song Yi to get an update on the chaos that ensued, and as soon as he gets the information, he runs to Zhao Yi to tell him that the rumor is true about Zhang, and the proof of it is that he took down 200 professionally trained men single-handedly. Zhao believes another dragon is born and wishes to meet Zhang in person. He volunteers as the middleman to smooth things out between Zhang and Chang Jiang. Meanwhile, at his home, Zhang falls on his bed exhausted. The system congratulates him on his involvement in the world and rewards him with 2,000 points. Zhang cries tears of joy when he realizes he's finally rich, but the system takes a blow at his gut when it tells him since he used the God of War card, his reward was halved. Irritated by the system duping him, he thinks of his prestige points and realizes it is almost time for his intermediate draw, but first he needs some sleep. It is the following day, and after sleeping like a log, Zhang feels refreshed. He's on his way to the library when he is stopped by Ronin from the Criminal Investigating Unit. She asks him to come with her to help them investigate an incident that happened the day before. Zhang confidently mentions that he was sleeping the entire day, but Liu loses her composure with him and tells him that a dozen people died because of him and he'll be charged with murder. Liu's partner warns him not to provoke Zhang. He's scared Zhang might hurt them, as the rumor has it that Zhang defeated 200 men all by himself. Zhang questions Liu if they have evidence against him, indicating he eliminated those men, and even if they do, how are they going to catch him? He then steps close to Officer Liu and makes her heart skip a beat before he turns and leaves. He also teases her by giving her a backhanded compliment. Liu quickly gains her composure and puts him under arrest, but before they can get him, Zhang vanishes, leaving them astonished. Liu's partner reminds him that a tyrant like Chang Jiang also dares not to press charges against Zhang. They should return to the precinct. Liu is determined to put Zhang behind the bar and takes a pledge to collect all the evidence for it to happen. Meanwhile, Zhang escapes in a car that Song Yi bought right on time. He pulls Zhang's leg by asking if Liu is his girlfriend, but Zhang wouldn't date a hot-tempered woman. Song Yi then tells Zhang that Zhao wants to have a meal together with Zhang and Chang Jiang. Zhang notices Song Yi addressed Zhao very respectfully and asks who he is. Song Yi tells Zhang that Zhao is the hidden dragon, the real owner of Tiandu City and the true underworld lord. He controls everything that happens in the city. Zhang is excited to meet the dragon. In the evening, they reach the stipulated place and Wang greets Zhang. He shows Zhang the way to where Zhao is waiting for him. Zhang cannot shake off the uneasiness he feels as he makes his way in. Song Yi is surprised that Zhao sent Wang to greet them and presumes Zhao must be very impressed by Zhang, which is why he is giving them special treatment. As they enter the hall, Zhang is surprised to see many elite members along with Zhao. Zhao welcomes Zhang and, with much effort, gets up to shake hands with him. Zhao then introduces Chai Shengfo. Song Yi's master is one of the only 3 national masters in China. Jiang greets Master Che and acknowledges him for making an appearance after a decade of living a quiet life in the mountains. Master Che offers Jiang to join him in cultivating in peace, humbling Jiang, who calls himself a junior. Master Che goes as far as acknowledging Jiang as his younger brother. Suddenly, Song Yi intervenes and asks Master Che to take that back, and soon a verbal spat occurs between Master Che and Song Yi. Master Che asks Song Yi to call Jiang uncle while he calls Jiang young brother. He even calls Song Yi his smelly disciple. Song Yi is surprised because Master Che expelled him for accidentally eliminating somebody, and suddenly, his entire journey flashes in front of his eyes. He remembers how little he was when Master Che took him in and how he got himself expelled. And now that his master has recognized him again, Song Yi can't hold back his tears. It is a happy reunion of a master and apprentice, and to commemorate the occasion, Zhou congratulates them and invites them to the dinner table. Jiang gobbles down the delicious food, and Zhou brings up the topic of his altercation with Chang Zhang recently. Zhou tells him that he has been in partnership with Chang Zhang for many years now. Taking the hint, Jiang asks how he wants to resolve the issue between them. Chang Zhang apologizes and offers an envelope that contains details of roughly $300 million worth of assets that Chang Zhang offers to transfer to Jiang as compensation for what his son did. Jiang accepts the compensation and is relieved that the matter is settled. A week later, Jiang is on his way to the bank along with Song Yi. Jiang transfers $200 to his parents' account and calls them to let them know of the transaction. His parents fear he stole the money, but Jiang assures them he earned it as a bonus for helping the police solve some issues. With that, Jiang earns 1,000 prestige points, making it a total of 10,000 prestige points. He qualifies for an intermediate draw that is only possible if one has accumulated 10,000 prestige points. Jiang asks Song Yi to wait and excuses himself with the pretext of attending to some business. He then goes to an isolated area where the slot machine appears, and he pulls the lever, anxiously waiting for a good reward. Jiang lands up with a super recovery ability. Though he can't regenerate limbs, it has a strong recovering ability for deep wounds. To test it out, Jiang takes a knife and slashes his wrist, but to his amazement, it starts healing on its own. The system tells him he can upgrade for 100 prestige points. He can't wait to have a perfect version of the ability. He tells Song Yi that he'll be coming to the studio the next day. He needs 100 points, and he knows he can earn those points by making movies. The next day when he goes to the studio, the boss introduces him to Yao, as she is the company's president. They get awkward and fist bump a little too hard with the intention of hurting each other. Boss leaves to attend a meeting and instructs Yao to show Jiang the office. Once alone, Yao tries to seduce Jiang, but Jiang is not taking any of it this time. She wants to know his secret because the last time they met, he said he was unemployed, but now he suddenly became her boss. But Jiang pushes her aside and asks her to focus on the business. Yao isn't sure how they will be able to pull it off because it is a little too ambitious. They don't have a script, and no well-known directors are ready to shoot the film. Jiang places the script he has written on the table and asks Yao to see if they can work with it. Yao thinks Jiang is an amateur, but when she reads the front page, she stutters as she looks astonished. After reading it through, Yu finally says the script is amazing and asks who the writer is. Jiang couldn't be happier as it is his favorite movie from Earth. When Jiang tells Yao that he is the writer, Yao doesn't believe him. She plans to use Jiang to her advantage and tells him that her ex-boyfriend Wu Tian might start interfering with her preparations, as he is quite powerful in the film industry. Jiang asks her to leave Wu Tian to him as he'll care for him. Yao couldn't be happier and plants a kiss on Jiang's cheek before leaving. Jiang and Yao have come to the Marriott Hotel for some event when they spot director Jin there, annoyed after a busy day. Yao goes to say hello and introduces her new boss Jiang to the director. Director Jin is surprised to see such a young chairman and graciously takes his hand. Just as they are about to go inside, Wang comes looking for Jiang and sees him talking to director Jin. He tells director Jin that Jiang is a friend of Zhao and asks him to cooperate in anything Jiang wants. Director Jin is glad he was courteous to Jiang and gladly accepts to help Jiang with anything he needs. Yao is surprised director Jing is showing such deference to Jiang, which interests Wang too, as he gets curious about their relationship. Director Jin asks Jiang if Wu Tian has been bothering him in any way because he can teach the lad a lesson, but Jiang knows Wu Tian is in for the shock of his life and wants things to unfold on their own, so he dismisses the claims as a misunderstanding. Meanwhile, Wu Tian is getting irritated waiting inside the hotel for director Jin as it has been quite some time. However, as soon as director Jin enters, Wu Tian gets up from his seat, welcoming him, but stops midway as blood runs down his face when he spots Zhang with the director. Zhang was waiting to see his reaction, and as he expected, Wu Tian went into full-on jittery mode. This time, director Jin asks Wu Tian directly if he had a fight with Zhang, and Wu Tian couldn't say anything except that it was a misunderstanding. Still, Zhang is not done with his pettiness, and adds that Wu Tian is particularly interested in his friend Yao, and nonchalantly claims that he is not suited to her. Now visibly shaking, Wu Tian curses Zhang in his mind when Wang warns him that going against Zhang is equivalent to challenging his brother Zhao as they are friends. Wu Tian is shocked beyond comprehension to learn Zhang and Zhao are friends. He immediately gets down on his knees, and with every sorry, Wang slaps him. Just then, Wu Zhang enters and intervenes, which creates tension between him and director Jin. To add fuel to the fire, Wang taunts Wu Tian for breaking the rules of the underground and acting like a thug. Wu Zhang is surprised and asks Wang if his brother, Wu Tian, offended him. But Wang asserts that the kid didn't offend him, but his brother, Zhang. Zhang enjoys being advocated for, as he can now eat his meal peacefully. Wu Zhang tries to placate the situation and offers compensation for Wu Tian's doing. But when Wang mentions the incident about Zhang and his 200 men being beaten up single-handedly by a monster of a person, and says that the legend is Zhang, Wu Zhang picks a champagne bottle and smashes on Wu Tian's head and chides him for messing with a person who can eliminate him in a snap. Ironically, he starts beating his brother, Black and Blue, but Zhang asks him to stop. Wang asks sternly if this will happen again, and Wu Tian takes his brother's responsibility and says if he ever shows his face to Yao, they'll cut him into pieces and feed him to the dogs. Wu Tian then drags his barely conscious brother to clean him up and takes his leave. Zhang is impressed by Wang's method of dealing with issues without any dire consequences and pours him a drink to appreciate how well he handled the situation. The men drink to their content, and by the end of the evening, director Jin is very intoxicated and makes a faux pas at Wang, who appears to be extremely attractive to him in his state. After the two leave, Yu cannot subdue her curiosity and asks Zhang who he really is. Zhang replies he's not that big of a deal, but a diabolical person. Zhang asks Yo for an update on how fast the work on the film he's making can start. Yo is almost done with hiring actors, and they can start shooting by next week, but they are facing funding issues. They require $30 million, and the company's financial condition is not assuring at the moment. Zhang suddenly takes a cool stance and declares that he can easily supply $25 million. Just as Yu hears about money, her inner seductress awakens, and she throws her arms around Zhang and proposes if he wants to support her financially. She is ready to become his mistress. She puts his finger in her mouth and explains everything she is willing to do for him. But Zhang pulls out his finger, refraining from going any further. He questions her about her intentions, unwilling to give in to her shenanigans. Yao is persistent, and while imagining intimate moments with Zhang, she blushes and says he can't do such things to her in the company. She finally changes her expression into a sultry one and asks how he likes the offer. That look is enough to make him hard, no matter how much he tries to calm himself down. He is irritated that his body is not listening to his mind, and after a brief quiet moment, he asks Yo to stop with the nonsense and heads home. Seeing her chance slip away, she tries one more time, but when Zhang doesn't budge, she calls after him to at least give her a ride home. The next day at school, Lin meets Zhang in the staff room to return his coat. She also brings him the lunch she has prepared for him, and seeing him enjoy her cooking, she is happy and surprised how Zhang has suddenly changed into someone so reliable. Zhang finds her staring at him and asks if she wants something from him. Lin struggles to find words and then says there is a birthday party and everybody is bringing their partners. She was wondering if Zhang would be interested in going with her, but then she struggles to explain that she didn't mean as a couple and gets flustered. Zhang doesn't think much of it and agrees to go with her. Later he meets Lin and her friends, who start interrogating him about his relationship with Lin. Lin tries to stop her friend from saying such things. Just then, the birthday girl Liu Lai arrives and apologizes for being late. Once all the friends arrive, Liu announces they will be going to Marriott and that everything is arranged by her boyfriend. The girls can't believe their luck and squeal in joy upon arrival. Zhang stays quiet and doesn't say much when the friends sing praises of Liu's boyfriend and how filthy rich he is. Once in a private room, they enjoy fancy meals while Zhang looks bored. Just then, Liu's boyfriend, Zhu Yu, greets the ladies. But as soon as he sees Zhang, He stops and stares at him, and so does Jiang, both realizing dealing with each other won't be easy. Jo Yu greets Liu and apologizes for being late, but his attention soon shifts to Lin, who is sitting alone. Liu introduces Lin as their school's flower and says she doesn't have a boyfriend yet. Jo finds it hard to believe and says he has brought some of his influential friends from the industry. He encourages the girls to build a network with them as his friends can provide them with opportunities for high-paying jobs after graduation. As they start sitting, every guy tries to sit with Lin, while Jiang doesn't like Zhu's audacity and curses him. Zhao then raises a toast for Liu, and another guy asks Lin to drink with them. Lin confesses she hasn't had alcohol before, but when Liu also insists, Lin has no choice but to have some. After finishing her glass of red wine, she is already drunk and feels she can't drink anymore, but one guy remains persistent. Jiang interferes and asks the man to back off, but as he's about to give him a piece of his mind, Lin's best friend, Xu Yuan, shuts him up and says he has no say in this as he hasn't had a single drink. She then challenges to drink on behalf of Lin, and Jiang is left to fret about his thunder being stolen by her. Suddenly, Liu remarks on Jiang's profession as a librarian at their school and suggests he takes advantage of the influential people in her party. The man who insisted Lin drink says he can offer Jiang a job in his foreign trade company and will pay him $8,000 a month. Jiang passes on the offer and says he likes his job. Liu doesn't want the job conversation to bore the party down, so she insists Jiang drink with them. But Jiang outrightly refuses, to which Zhou rubs his success story on Jiang's face, swearing by his alcohol tolerance. Jiang has had enough of their narcissism and says that he has a high alcohol tolerance. It is just that he doesn't drink with just anybody. Zhou's expressions change, and with his temper rising, he asks Jiang if he's saying that he is not worth Jiang's time. Jiang's aura changes to a murderous one, and he reiterates that he drinks only with people he deems worthy, and nobody can force him to drink, even if it is someone's birthday. The atmosphere turns tense, and the other guy shouts at Jiang for using such a tone. But before he can say anything else, Wu Zhang enters and asks how he is alive after talking like that to Jiang. The man calms down and starts showing sycophancy, but Wu Zhang refuses to recognize him. He then turns to Jiang and says he is here with some buddies, and when he heard Jiang is there too, he dropped by to say hi. He asks if the men offended Jiang. Jiang says the guys were forcing his cousin to drink with wrong intentions, and when he intervened, the guys started getting fussy and forcing him to drink instead. With bloodthirst in his eyes, Wu Zhang offers to take care of the situation and starts counting the men to beat them to a pulp. The girls are scared to think about what is happening, while Liu can't fathom a librarian with connections with the underworld. Wu Zhang shows no mercy and says he's going to stick 3 bottles of vodka down their throat, and whoever can't finish it will be thrown in the river along with their entire families. Jiang scoffs as he finds it funny that a tough guy like Wu Zhang is Wu Tin's brother, who is the polar opposite. Jiang thanks Wu Zhang for taking care of these unruly men for him and offers to drink with him. Wu Zhang accepts and gets the table clean for them. He calls out to Lin and says he has something to discuss with Wu Zhang and asks her and the others to go to the next private room. After a couple of drinks, they are ready to call it a night. Wu Zhang tells Jiang that he has arranged a car for Lin and others to drop them back at school, and they say their goodbyes. The next day, Jiang gets surrounded by women as soon as he reaches school. They bombard him with chocolates and lunchboxes and surround him, unwilling to let him go. Lin is not happy with women fawning over him and tells him that Xu Yuan told all the girls how dashing Jiang is, which made the girls want to see him and know him. Jiang literally bleeds from every hole after the assault to his dignity by the insane women throwing themselves on him. He gets saved by a phone call from the company, who wants him to oversee the shooting and the scene at the studio. With a smirk, he rushes out, thanking his stars for saving him from those thirsty women. Jiang reaches the station after a tiring bus journey and searches for a placard with his name. It doesn't take much time for him to find it, as the man holding it shakes it vigorously and introduces himself as Tu An, a crew member from Gusu's studio. Jiang feels awkward as Fu An blabbers about being a fan of his work. He is excited to tell Jiang about the crew and wants Jiang to share the same enthusiasm. But Jiang couldn't care less and wonders if Fu hit his head when he was born. Fu tells him there are 2 big superstars. One of them is a failed drama series actor, and the other is a veteran actor who has been away from the industry for a long time. Just as they reach the studio, Jiang is amazed to see Jaffa in action. Director Chang Do-in finalizes the scene after he's happy with it and greets Jiang as Fu introduces him. Chen compliments his work and then calls Jaffa to talk to Zhang. Jaffa surprises Zhang by thanking him for providing him with another chance. Jiang praises his acting and says he bought out the character. He feels Jaffa is humble for an upcoming actor and takes notice of him. After the successful completion of the direction of the movie, Cheng invites everybody on the crew for drinks. The merrymaking continues till late at night, and Cheng loses all decency. He starts searching a crew member's skirt for more beer. Jiang can take just enough, and after Jaffa thanks him again, he leaves for the night. While walking alone, Jiang finds the street empty and decides to use his internal force to extract the alcohol from his body. Just as he does so, and all the alcohol comes out in the form of a liquid energy ball, he hears a murmur from the far end of the street. Jiang panics, thinking it might be a ghost, but musters up the courage to check out the source of the noise. He walks toward the sound and finds a woman curled up on a bench, sobbing. Jiang decides to scare her and makes a scary face as he approaches her. She lets out a yelp, and Jiang laughs after having his revenge for scaring him. He then sits beside her and asks why she's crying. In between sobs, she tells him that everybody in the movie crew bullies her. Jiang argues that she is so cute that even he feels like teasing her. She can't believe he just called her cute and looks at him quizzically. Jiang elaborates that he knows many beautiful girls, but none can be compared to her. However, Jiang reminds her that being cute is not enough, so she needs to sell her talent or body to sustain herself in the industry. The girl starts crying out loud, saying she doesn't want others to touch her. She then introduces herself as Yi Qingxing, a student of the Imperial College of Film and Television. She had come out with her classmate, as the former director invited them for food and drinks, but his intentions were not good, so she ran from the hotel while her classmate was still partying with the director. John questions her why she's tolerating such behavior, and he replies she is the daughter of an actress and her dream is to become a big star like her mother. She cries as she has left her documents and wallet in the hotel, but she is not willing to go back, so Jiang decides to help her and offers her a role in his movie. His face lights up as she's finally met a man who is not a bully. But she soon loses consciousness, and Jiang rushes to catch her before she hits the ground. He is worried something might have happened, but when her stomach growls, he gives out a sigh of relief and understands he fainted because of hunger. He takes her to a restaurant, and she eats to her heart's content, and once she's done, she asks him to come with her to her hotel. Jiang almost spits out his drink and pleads with her never to say it out loud in public. As they are leaving, two hooligans pass obscene comments on them, but Jiang will not take such crap from anybody. He warns them to run for their lives and gives them 3 seconds as he starts the countdown. When the thugs don't budge, Jiang finishes him with punches, making a bloody scene. The people around stand in terror, wondering if they should call the police as it looks serious. He spots the others standing at a distance, terrified, and as if he teleported, he appears in front of him and kicks him with brute force. Upon realizing he used too much power, he hopes he didn't eliminate the guy, but he miraculously survives. Once his job is done, he smacks Yi's behind and asks her to accompany him. Yi holds Jiang's jacket and says he is the first person who stood by her other than her sister. She suddenly says she wants to learn Kung Fu and asks him if he can teach her, but he refuses, saying it is hard to teach what he does to someone. He remembers something and meets the restaurant owner to apologize for the damages and sends in more than necessary. As they make their way out, he gets a call from her classmate, who yells at her, complaining that the director is furious and is trying to block her off in the entertainment circle. She warns her to return and apologize or she can say goodbye to the role she wants. Jiang gets irritated by the yapping from the other side of the phone, so he borrows her phone, gives them an address, and challenges the director to meet him as he wants to see who has the balls to blacklist in the entertainment industry. Yi and Jiang go to meet the director and see the director shamelessly placing his hands over Yi's friend in places he shouldn't be reaching. Yi's friend doesn't seem to mind and chides Yi for running away. She asks Yi to stay and accompany the director to show her appreciation. The director grabs her tight and shifts his attention to Yi. He asks her to sit beside him, and he will give her the role. Jiang calls the director a dipshit, which enrages him, and he grabs Jiang by his collar. Jiang grips him by his hand and pins him on the table. With the other hand, he grabs a bottle and smashes it on the director's head, making him bleed profusely. The director whimpers in pain while the woman with him screams murder. The director still has the audacity to threaten Jiang, so Jiang grabs him by his neck and lifts him. He then introduces himself and warns him not to mess with his crew and sister Dee, as he acknowledged her as his sister just moments ago. Jang's generosity touches Yi, and her eyes well up. After mopping the floor with him, Jang threatens the director not to even think about seeking revenge, or he'll make him suffer. Yi's friend cries, shaking with fear and asking the director to get medical attention, or he'll succumb to excessive blood loss. Jang then takes Yi with him, and they leave the hotel. However, the director is already planning revenge as he coughs up blood. Once outside, Jang proposes to go to Yi's hotel, making her blush hard. They soon reach her room, and he makes Jang wear her sleeping eye mask to prevent him from peeking while she changes her clothes. He concentrates on his cup of noodles and wonders how he ended up in the same room as this girl. The entire hotel is booked, and he is forced to share it with Yi with no rooms left. He finishes his noodles, lies down when Yi says she is done, and asks if he wants to shower. Jang thinks it is safe to open his eye mask, but when he does, Yi is still in her undergarments, and she lets out a scream that can be heard till next door. She starts throwing things at him till he wears the mask again. She switches off the light so he can't see a thing, and in no time, Jang starts snoring. Thinking he's fallen asleep, Yi grabs a bottle to drink some water and says out loud how lucky she feels to have met him, because he is the only person to have stood by her and fought for her other than her sister. She also confesses that Jang looked handsome while he was fighting, and suddenly realizing what she just said, she thanks her stars that Jang is sleeping or she might have to dig a hole to hide. Feeling good after speaking her heart out, she climbs into her bed and sleeps, unbeknownst to her that Jang heard everything she just said. The next morning, Yi prepares breakfast for Jang. After getting ready, they visit the studio only to find out that the two actors and actresses in his movie are hospitalized after they met with an accident. Though the injuries are not severe, their absence will drastically affect the shooting schedule, and even director Chang is furious. Jang thanks for a while, then turns to Yi and says it is her lucky day. He wants her to play the lead role and takes her to introduce her to Chang. Chang approves of her, instantly smitten by her beauty, and offers the male lead to Jang. Jang isn't sure and says he has no experience in acting. Chang persuades him and pulls out an Uno card when he says he'll tell Liao that Jang has a new girlfriend, and she'll then deal with him personally. A chill runs down Jang's spine even as he thinks about it and agrees to play the part. 3 days later, Jang is fighting someone when his brother comes, and Jang attacks him, but his brother effortlessly defends himself and chides him for that sneak attack, but Jang laughs and asks how it was. Suddenly Chang yells, "Cut!" and they finalize the scene. Veteran actor Hu compliments Jang on his acting skills, and Jang shows his appreciation by giving all the credit to him. Chang is also happy with Jang and tells him how much he loves his crew. Just then, one of the crew members gets kicked, and some shady-looking people bark for the director to come out. Chang asks if this is about management fees and tells them he has already paid them. One of the thugs says they won't bother him, but they are looking for Jang Bai as he has offended their friend. Hu warns Jang not to mess with these troublemakers and says Chang knows how to deal with the problem. Just then, Chi Jian, who has the management fees, arrives with his men. He asks Chang what the matter is and Chang tells him the men are threatening one of his actors. Chi takes responsibility and confronts the men for creating a scene. One of the guys tells Chi that Jang thrashed his friend and director, and they have come on his behalf to take revenge. Hu is astonished when he hears they are Huang's men, and warns Jang that Huang is an influential man with hundreds of millions of dollars, who hires badmen to do his dirty work, and has support from the Taindu underground triad gang. But Jang remains unfazed and says he has a friend who works at a high post with the local government. He assures everyone everything will be fine. When she hears Huang's name, he withdraws his men and says he'll return the management fee as he can't go against a man like Huang. But he warns the men that they will not meddle with other crew members. The man, Wang Kong, gives his word and says they just want Jang, and adds that they also need the girl named Yi, as she is the reason why this mess started in the first place. Hu and others step up and offer to help Jang. After all, he is one of them, and even Yi offers to call her sister. But Jang says it wouldn't be necessary as he knows a person who is very powerful in Tiandu. Jang calls Song Yi and asks him to send someone to deal with the issue. Song Yi has a perfect person as he is also a big fan of Jang and assures he'll be there soon. It has already been half an hour, and Jang is surrounded by dozens of men waiting to charge at him. Just then, Wang Sani appears in person, and everybody thinks this is it for Jang. It is too late to save him now. Wang Sani stands in front of Jang, and after confirming his identity, bows and stutters as he introduces himself. The men stand there agape, thinking what on earth is going on. Jiang feels embarrassed and asks what is going on. Wang explains that he got a call from Song Yi, so he quickly rushed to the scene. The director, Yan Xing, had told Wang someone had broken his skull and had hired him to teach Jiang a lesson. But Wang calls it a misunderstanding and apologizes to Jiang, which Jiang readily accepts, and everybody is left flabbergasted by such a turn of events. Yi immediately rushes to Jiang's side, unable to stop her tears as she thought she would lose Jiang. Jiang wipes her tears and, with a smile, says he will always be there to protect her. No matter what the situation is, she won't be bullied again. Wang apologizes for interrupting their moment and asks if they want to have lunch together. Jiang agrees and invites Cheng Hu and Zhou Fa to join them while Wang arranges a place. However, the actors and director feel they can't sit with a hotshot like Jiang. But Jiang assures them it is not a big deal, and then turns to Wang, ordering him to make sure no one bothers his crew for paying management or protection fees as long as they are filming in Gusu. In the end, it is only Jiang and Wang having lunch together. Wang offers to take him to his clubhouse, and Jiang agrees. Unbeknownst to him, Wang has cabaret girls arranged to entertain them. Bai Jiang is not impressed and questions Wang if he thinks Jiang is like any ordinary young master or corrupt official who just gets drunk and laid. Just then, he hears a girl call out Chu Chu, and Jiang suddenly remembers she used to be his girlfriend on Earth, and they were together for more than 4 years. But they broke up because Jiang never stood by his promise to marry her. He would always say he'll marry her when he has earned a lot, but no amount of money was sufficient for Jiang, so Chu Chu suggested they go their separate ways as she was tired of waiting for him and believing in a promise that would never be fulfilled. Jiang is lost in his thoughts about Chu Chu when Huang notices him staring at a girl and asks her to come, calling her Wu Xingxin. He asks her to entertain Jiang and soon leaves them alone. Jiang and Wu start talking, and she tells him she is still studying. Her mother was sick with uremia and needed money for her medical expenses, so Wang helped them monetarily and even sent her to the hospital. She didn't want to owe Wang, so to compensate for all the expenditure, she works there and even goes to school. Jiang is still perplexed that she works in a place like this and asks her to concentrate on her studies. They'll lend her money, and she can forget about the arrangement Wang has made for her. He sends her away and calls for Wang. He confronts him for bringing an underage girl to his club and warns him that it shouldn't happen again. Wang apologizes and gives his word that it won't happen again. Jiang feels Wang is hiding something and asks if he needs help. Wang gives in and says he has encountered serious trouble. Wang tells Jiang that 1/10 of his product went missing in the northern port city, and he can't do anything about it because of his company's reputation and constantly being in the public eye. Because he couldn't do anything, his product worth $1 billion was caught by customs. If the goods aren't returned, he fears he might die. Officially, they can't touch those guys in the north, but Zhao Wuji can, and if he demands it, the goods will be released. He asks Jiang to use his connections to approach Zhao Wuji, the Tiandu underground overlord. He offers Jiang half of the goods as compensation. Jiang agrees and calls Wang and explains the situation. But Wang tells him there will be some complications with getting the goods released, and that complication is Wu Tangxin, the vanguard of a Bay city in the north. He is one of the most illustrious figures in China, a successful businessman with influence spread throughout the area to the Tiandu River and the imperial capital. There is a rumor that a powerful guy is working under Wu Tangxin, and there is no other information available about the guy. Jiang gets excited and plans to go to Northport City himself. He asks Wang to handle the official side and make sure the goods don't disappear. Rest, he'll take care of the situation. Wang is grateful to Jiang for helping him out and pledges his allegiance to Jiang. At night, Jiang is lying on his bed, thinking what a pain Wang is when someone enters his room. It is Wu Xingxin who undresses before climbing into bed with Jiang. Jiang suddenly wakes up and pins Wu on the bed, asking her what she's doing there even after he asked her to concentrate on her studies. He decides to play with her a little and, with a smirk, says she'd be in trouble if he fails to hold it back. But to his surprise, Wu says she doesn't mind, so Jiang takes a soft approach and asks her to come to him when in trouble. He then lies beside her, assuring her he'll cover her mother's hospital expenses. They soon doze off, and in the morning, Jiang finds himself alone in bed with a note from Wu that reads she has an exam the next day, so he can call her after the test. With that, she mentioned her number. Jiang lets out a chuckle before getting ready to sail the sea, and as he does, he has an uneasy feeling. But he takes pleasure in the thrill he feels as he realizes he might lose his life if he is not careful enough. Jiang reaches the Northport city and meets Wang's informant, Sun Gai, at a luncheon. He tells Jiang that Wang has handled the customs and Jiang can arrange for someone to pick up the goods. He asks which route he will choose, but it doesn't make any difference for Jiang. Sun warns him that he might not be able to move the item out, but Jiang is keen to meet Wu Tangson and asks Sun to arrange a meeting with him. Sun fixes a meeting of the two and informs Jiang that Wu Tangson has invited him to eat with him. Jiang sends him off, thanking him for getting the work done. He then enters the private eating area and meets Wu Tangson, who is surprised to see such a young man standing before him. They share a little repartee before Wu Tangson's men hold Jiang at gunpoint, just because Wu Tangson has heard stories about Jiang and wants to see for himself if any of them are true. But Wu Tangson asks his men to keep the gun away, and an unperturbed Jiang asks for the product he withheld at the port. Wu Tangson boasts that he can release it by just lifting a finger, but he questions Jiang why he should give it to him. Jiang takes a serious stance and replies that Wu Tangson will not leave the Marina Hotel if he doesn't do as asked. Wu Tangson chuckles and claps, and soon his men enter the room from all directions and surround Jiang. Jiang lights a cigarette as Wu Tangson irritates him. Still, he flicks a cigarette at Wu Tangson, who lights it and acknowledges Jiang's courage. He confesses that he would have given back the item in normal circumstances, but he doesn't like Huang and asks Jiang to bring Huang here, and he will let Jiang go easily. And as long as Huang is willing to do as he says, he will give him back his goods. Wu Tangson offers Jiang to work for him, but Jiang has already said what he needs. He reiterates that he needs the goods or he'll smash Wu Tangson's face to a pulp. Wu Tangson thinks it is Jiang's arrogance speaking because, at that moment, 40 armed men are surrounding Jiang, and he has no way out. Jiang insists that the men don't move or else he'll show them no mercy. Wu Tangson laughs at Jiang's proclamation and swears that if he can reach him in the room after tackling his men, he'll recognize him, and as long as he is alive, Wu Tangson will not mess with or reach out to him. Wu Tangson is still mid-sentence when Jiang is already above his head. In no time, he beats half of the men senseless, but he gets caught by a 7-foot giant who grabs Jiang's head and wouldn't let go. But that doesn't last long, and Jiang twists the giant's arms, breaking them. Wu Tangson sees a hungry ghost in Jiang and predicts he can turn into a demon in the future. The men start shooting at Jiang, but nothing can stop his thirst for blood, and soon a bloody roulette takes place where the only shooter is Jiang. With most men eliminated, Wu Tangson calls the manager of his men and asks him to send his men to the ground floor and not to come in the room, and describes the situation as being handled. After Jiang is done eliminating all 40 armed men, he asks Wu Tangson for the goods, but Wu Tangson laughs and snaps his fingers. Just then, Jiang has dozens of lasers pointed at him. He realizes Wu Tangson has used snipers to target him and curses him. Jiang warns him that he can eliminate him even before anybody can shoot him, but Wu Tangson just laughs and, in a matter-of-fact tone, says they both will take their last breaths together as the two stand with guns pointing at each other. The two aim at each other and soon start shooting at each other mercilessly. Jiang aims at Wu Tangson and shoots him point blank, and as Wu Tangson falls, he manages to say "good shot" before he passes away, but just as Jiang starts laughing hysterically, he gets shot by the snipers. The two men are still standing with guns, and this scenario runs through Jiang's head. He knows he has no chance of survival if he finishes off Wu Tangson. Jiang is in a dilemma when Wu Tangson puts his gun down and says he surrenders because he doesn't have the heart to go through with it. He adds that Jiang wins the game. Jiang sneers at that remark and says that Wu Tangson values his life more than Jiang's, which is why he is ending their little game. Wu Tangson doesn't mind Jiang saying it like this because it is true, and he asks his men to compensate the families of the deceased while sending the injured to be treated. He asks the room to be cleared as he wants to discuss something with Jiang over drinks. That night, after getting really drunk, Jiang walks back to his hotel. As he's walking in the street, he notices a drunk girl being harassed by two men. Jiang grabs one of the men by his head and tosses him in the air. After what he saw, the other man doesn't dare to fight with him and apologizes before leaving the girl alone. The girl is too wasted, so Jiang brings her to his hotel. After showering, she asks Jiang if he would like to join her for a few drinks. Jiang can barely think straight because of the splitting headache, and now she is asking him to drink with her. What is wrong with this woman, he wonders. It is her way of thanking him for saving her. As she hands him a can of beer, she tells him her story. She was in elementary school when she met her now husband. She doesn't even know why she married him, probably because he got wounded on his duty as a policeman when they were dating, and she took pity on him. Meanwhile, Jiang is trying hard not to throw up because he's had too many drinks. The woman continues her story and says that her relationship has gotten threadbare with her husband, but she is willing to work on that. Someone told her having a baby might help them restore their relationship, so she removes her towel and announces she is going to make a baby with Jiang. Just as Jiang sees her naked, he can't hold it in any longer and barfs all over the floor. Jiang holds a suitcase full of money as he gets surrounded by armed men demanding the money from him. But he gives them the finger and claims the money to be his as he won it in gambling, playing fair and square. He is not ready to part with it when a speeding truck comes and Jiang gets hit. The men demanding money look confused as it is their truck, but they didn't call it in front of the casino. Just then, an unknown entity gets out of the truck and laughs, seeing Jiang lying in a pool of blood and his life slowly fading away. Jiang wakes up with a jerk, and the unknown entity's words wishing him a good trip ring in Jiang's ears. It takes a minute for Jiang to think straight, and he realizes he is in his bed naked. He finds a paper strip on the table with a message written on it, accompanied by a bundle of notes. In the letter, the woman thanks Jiang for what he did last night and says if she has his kid, she will take care of him and will not bother Jiang. She left $10,000 and bids him farewell. Jiang is irritated about being treated like this and wonders if he really slept with her. Suddenly his phone rings and Wang thanks him profusely because he got back his goods and asks for a month to prepare his share of money as promised. Jiang gets dressed and prepares to leave as his work is done. Somewhere a man asks to meet Mr. Shi. She asks his men to let the man come in. The man starts talking about Wu Tangxin, but she stops in mid-sentence and agrees Zhao Wuji has begun to get on his nerves. He is thinking of assassinating Zhao Wuji himself as things are not going well for his plans. Jiang is back in his city and is meeting with Song Yi, who is running late. While waiting, he gets a text from Wu Xingxin saying she is done with her exams. Song Yi apologizes for being late and claims it takes time to dress stylishly and do the hair. Jiang ignores his fancy excuses and asks him to take him to an address. Song Yi recognizes the address of a school and asks Jiang if he is on a date or something. Jiang doesn't shy away and says yes, making Song Yi cringe. He is even repelled by the pink-colored t-shirt Jiang is wearing and reminds him to dress appropriately. After all, he is a multi-billionaire Chinese underground boss. Jiang reminds him he is a librarian and asks Song Yi not to treat him like someone from the mafia. Song Yi is not having any of Jiang's excuses, and he urges Jiang to get in the car as he's planning to take him for a makeover and a change of clothes. At the school, Wu Xingxin meets her friend, who asks her where she has been all these days. She tells him the two guys in their class got into an argument because of Wu Xingxin, but Wu Xingxin says she has nothing to do with it. As they're walking, they meet Wang Yang, which makes Wu Xingxin embarrassed. Wang Yang claims to settle the score with the other kid named Gu Kai, and that guy will never bother her again, but Wu Xingxin is not interested and says she has nothing to do with the fight. She makes it clear to Wang Yang that he can't force her to like him. Hearing this vexes Wang Yang, and he yells at her that whatever he does is for her, and today he has called his elder brother to settle the matter once and for all with Gu Kai. Soon Wang Yang arrives, and in an almost threatening tone, says to Wu Xingxin that she can't leave now and asks how she is willing to compensate his brother. They're in the middle of the conversation when Gu Kai arrives and asks Wu Xingxin if she wants to have lunch together. Wang Yang takes offense and threatens to eliminate him from the picture altogether. Wang Yang suddenly attacks Gu Kai and lands several punches on him till he's dragged away by his brother's men, leaving Gu Kai coughing up blood. Wu Xingxin has had enough of the drama and asks the boys to leave her alone as she has nothing to do with their fight. But before she can leave with her friend, Wang Yang's elder brother stops her and intimidates her into not leaving as the fight happened because of her in the first place. He then goes on to invite her and her friend to hang out with them. Wang Yang is shocked and reminds him the deal was only to beat up Gu Kai and nothing more. Sensing his intentions, Wang Yang objects, but his brother holds him by his collar, threatening to stay out of his business. Just then, Jiang appears from behind and refuses to let Wu Xingxin go with those hooligans. Wu Xingxin is glad Jiang is there and asks about his new hair. Jiang tells her that Song Yi took him for a makeover. He then asks Wu Xingxin's friend to join them for lunch, which she gladly agrees. Wang Yang's brother can't handle being ignored like that and decides to teach Jiang a lesson. Little did he know by the time he's done plotting, he will be beaten to a pulp by Song Yi. But even then, Wang Yang is not threatened by what he witnessed and warns Jiang against taking Wu Xingxin with him. Irked by his audacity, Song Yi asks Wu Xingxin that she knows the twerp, referring to Wang Yang. Vexed after being called a twerp, Wang Yang also says some hurtful things to Song Yi, and soon they start bickering about who is grosser. Jiang jokes about the two getting along, and finally, Wang Yang admits he lost, but he warns he'll win Wu Xingxin back. Jiang intervenes and says he has already lost the battle because Wu Xingxin doesn't belong to anybody. He adds, with a hint of warning, to be good to Wu Xingxin or else he won't let him off the hook that easily. Even though Song Yi finds Wang Yang too emotional, easily exploited, and has issues, he still decides to take him under his wing and train him. The group soon leaves for lunch. Later that evening, while returning after sending the girls off to their house, Jiang thanks Song Yi for managing the company meticulously, as he wouldn't have been able to handle things alone. Song Yi smirks and asks Jiang if he's trying to make him barf. Jiang doesn't know how else to say it and tells him he will never repeat what he said ever again. Just then, he gets a text from Wu Xingxin saying that someone reported the afternoon incident as her getting kidnapped, and the school authorities have called her mom. But because she is unwell, Wu Xingxin asks Jiang to come to her school instead. The next day, Jiang visits Wu Xingxin's school and lets out a scream when he sees the teacher. She is the same drunk woman he had saved and spent the night with. She turns towards him somberly and asks him to be quiet when she, too, almost chokes on her spit and fumbles as she introduces herself as Wu Xingxin's homeroom teacher. Su, Jiang introduces himself as Wu Xingxin's brother, clears the misunderstanding about the kidnapping, and tells Su that he took Wu Xingxin with him. He is then made to wait till Wang Yang's dad arrives. Mr. Yang apologizes on behalf of his son and pleads with Su not to expel him. Just then, Mr. and Mrs. Gu arrive and demand answers for their son's injuries. The vice principal apologizes and assures that nothing of this sort will happen again. He then turns to Su and, in a stern voice, asks her to explain what mess her students created. Having heard enough about her methods of educating the class, Su assertively explains what happened is different. Su narrates the entire story, and Mrs. Gu accuses Mr. Yang of his son's behavior, and poor Mr. Yang apologizes profoundly for not raising Wang Yang properly. He asks for their forgiveness and offers to pay the medical expenses, but Mrs. Gu isn't satisfied and wants to send Wang Yang to jail. Wang Yang can't see his dad apologize like that and loses his temper. He calls Mrs. Gu an old hag and asks her not to talk to his dad like that. Mrs. Gu isn't fazed until she sees Wang Yang's sinister expression and realizes he's being serious about hurting her if she continues belittling his dad. So she gains her composure and says she'll deal with him later. She then turns to Wu Xingxin and mocks her, calling her names for being a gold digger and seducing her son. She warns her to stay away from her son and comments on her social stature. But when she threatens to tear her face and leave her body to rot on the streets, Jiang catches hold of her tongue and threatens to rip it off if she says anything else to Wu Xingxin. When Mr. Gu interferes, Jiang pins him on the wall using his foot and threatens dire consequences if they don't leave immediately. Mr. Gu utters a few words under his breath when Mrs. Gu calls the police as she has some connections, but Jiang couldn't care less. Wang Yang is baffled at Jiang's audacious behavior and asks Wu Xingxin if her brother is deliberately trying to get himself in trouble. But Wu Xingxin looks confident and says Jiang is nothing like ordinary people. Just then, Jiang calls Song Yi and narrates the whole incident. He also tells him about the police being called on him, and after giving all the necessary details, he asks Song Yi to deal with the situation. Mrs. Gu smirks as she knows what awaits Jiang once the police arrive and starts demeaning him, but a ringtone interrupts her. It is Mr. Gu's phone, and he gets a call from the district head. The official begins yelling at Mr. Gu for abusing his rank in the education board and trying to get a student expelled. The official then asks him to apologize to Jiang and tells him that Jiang has ties with the Tandu and Gusu underworld, and they don't want any trouble as the elections are nearing. He is also asked to send his resignation letter. Mr. Gu soon hangs up, turns toward Jiang, addresses him as Mr. Jiang, and apologizes for his wife and son's behavior. He assures him they will never cause any trouble again. Mr. Gu also promises that his son will not harass Wu Xingxin, and they will transfer him to a different school immediately. Jiang lets them go, and soon Mr. Yang asks permission to leave as he has work to attend. He also promises to make Wang Yang reflect on his mistake and will try to compensate the school. As Wang Yang leaves, Zhang hands him a card with a number and tells him that if he ever gets in trouble or gets expelled, he needs to call the number, and the person will give him a job and keep him well fed. Wang Yang thanks him before leaving. After everybody leaves, Sue asks Zhang about his identity, because what she witnessed is not something an ordinary person can do. One has to be affluent to pull off this kind of an act, but Zhang brushes away the question, saying he is just a businessman, a librarian, a playwright, and an author. Sue tells him that her husband knows Mr. Gu, and he is not someone who can be easily swayed by money. Zhang asks for her husband's name, but when she refuses, Zhang clasps her face and declares he is now her husband after they spent the night together the other day, and her ex-husband can now wear a green hat. Sue is irked by Zhang's audacity, and she kicks him hard to get him away from her. But Zhang is adamant and asks her to behave or he'll make her regret it. He then pulls her by her arm and asks if she's willing to go out with him now that she is not pregnant. Sue yells at him to let him go and says if she knew this would happen, she would have never considered someone like him. Meanwhile, Wook Singson stands there, clueless about what is happening between the two. Zhang teases her till Sue asks him to get out. Zhang laughs and walks out, and before leaving, he instructs Wook Singson not to create trouble anymore. Wook Singson starts asking Sue all sorts of questions, and Sue can't handle the embarrassment. She sends Wook Singson to her class and asks her to take care of her brother, because she feels he was dropped on his head when he was young. She also wonders how Wook Singson and Zhang are related. Meanwhile, while walking on the street, Zhang sneezes and wonders if someone is bad-mouthing him. Just then, his phone rings, and it is from Wang, who calls him immediately as it is an emergency. He explains that as per Zhao Yi's plan, he has arranged a banquet for Zhang. However, the reason will be explained later, and he asks Zhang to dress up, and he will send someone to pick him up. Zhang cannot help but feel dread. Zhang soon reaches a lavish banquet, where Wang introduces Zhang to Director Deng as a replacement for Zhao Yi, who couldn't attend owing to his poor health. It comes as a surprise to both Deng and Zhang, and Deng regrets calling Zhao Yi's successor a kid. Deng quickly gains his composure and welcomes him with confidence while Zhang is busy in his web of thoughts. He wonders if this is all true and if something really happened to Zhao Yi. Wang praises Zhang immensely and even calls him a real dragon among people. Deng offers to have drinks with them, but Wang politely declines on account of discussing important matters with other important people. After the party, Zhang questions Wang what the party was all about. He couldn't help but notice how weird Wang was acting, and also he made sure to introduce Zhang to all the important people at the party. Wang tells him not to ask many questions, as it is not the right place to discuss such matters. He promises to explain everything later and asks him to rest for the night. He'll pick Zhang up the next day. But Zhang is curious, so Wang takes Zhang to Zhao Yi's place. There, Zhang is astonished to see Zhao Yi in such a frail condition. Zhao Yi coughs and, upon asking, reveals that he might not live for long, as he shows his hand covered in blood. Zhao Yi says he's accepted his fate after the doctor gave him 3 months to live. However, he has a few regrets, but nothing much to worry about. He trusts Zhang's ability that he will carry forward his legacy. Zhang wants to help find a cure, but Zhao Yi says it is useless as it doesn't have a treatment. It has been suffering for a decade now, and famous doctors haven't been able to find a cure. But surprisingly, he feels calm, except for one matter. Wang has been following him for a long time, taking care of Zhao Yi's business, and even though he is strong enough to fight his battles, there are some forces in the city that can topple him. And once he's gone, such forces will start moving to destroy everything he created and worked for. Zhang came as a blessing to him, and after he learned about his feats, Zhao Yi was sure Zhang was the man destined to continue his legacy. He then reveals he has a daughter in the US and wishes to see her one last time before he's gone. Wang shows Zhang a picture of Zhao Hong, Zhao Yi's daughter, and says he would have gone to find her himself, but there will be no one to take care of Zhao Yi then. He also says if something happens to him, Zhang is expected to take care of Zhao Hong. Zhang assures he will always be there to help not only Zhao Hong but also Wang if he ever gets in trouble. Zhang declares he'll honor the promise when the time comes and lights the picture on fire. Zhao Yi then tells him the lessons he learned during his time in the underworld and warns him that a single man cannot compete an army. So making allies and not offending stronger people will help him stay on top. Wang adds that Zhao Yi was a first-class master in wushu in his younger days, and the national martial arts world respected him. Zhao Yi takes a somber tone and tells him about the four overlords of the underworld: the Dragon Emperor, like King Di, Hebei's Vanguard, Wu Tangxin, Southern Tiger, Mao Chengshan, and the Northeast King, Nalan Zong. Zhao Yi apologizes for getting Zhang involved and bringing him under the limelight after he is declared the successor of Zhao Yi. He admits he was surprised when Zhang came back safely after meeting Hebei's overlord, Wu Tangxin. He speculates he must have seen something in Zhang to let him go, or because he is still alive, and Wu Tangxin would have been subjected to his repercussions if he harmed Zhang. But one cannot be sure, and it could be that he's just playing with Zhang, waiting for the right time to strike. However, this is not the important part. Zhao Yi reveals that Zhang must be weary of this one man and must not approach him at any point of time in his life. The man is Xichang Sheng. Zhao Yi still remembers the day he met Xichang. It was during his peak years and during his brief period of hesitation, while pointing his gun at him, that Xichang took control and crippled Zhao Yi. Zhao Yi still regrets facing the man head-on. Once Zhang returns home from Zhao Yi's place, he can't stop thinking about how he can help Zhao Yi, so he decides to ask the system for an update on Zhao Yi's health. The system, however, pulls Zhang in and takes him to a digital space, where he meets his old self. The old Zhang asks him to worship him as he introduces himself as the system. New Zhang feels he's dreaming, but old Zhang is quick to remind him that with an updated version, he can create things and, in a snap of a finger, creates a table and chairs for them to sit on. New Zhang asks how many points he will require to upgrade his powers so he can cure Zhao Yi. The old Zhang says it will cost him 120,000 points, which is cheap. While Zhao Yi's body is strong due to practicing martial arts, but his internal organs are rotting, and his condition worsens every day. Old Zhang says they need a resurrection method. Finding no other way, the new Zhang decides to give it a shot. Since he doesn't have that many coins, old Zhang suggests gambling and brings out the slot machine. After pulling the lever multiple times and still not landing on a useful reward, Zhang gets frustrated and curses loudly. Finally giving up, new Zhang plops on the floor and asks old Zhang for anything that can extend Zhao Yi's life in exchange for his prestige points. Old Zhang looks in the store and tells him about the Seed of Life for 3,200 points that can increase the lifespan of the consumer by 1 year. New Zhang thinks of buying one every year, but old Zhang puts a rest to his thoughts by telling him the seed can only be used once. New Zhang buys it anyways. Back at his residence, Zhang gets a call from Xiao Wang, telling him about the money transfer to his account after the success of a movie he made and the business running smoothly, but the people from Hebei pulled out of the business for unknown reasons. He shares the idea of opening an import-export business, and Zhang gives him the green light, provided everything is done legally. After the call, Zhang wonders what the Hebei overlord is up to. He then decides to go out and greets Yao at the entrance. Yao immediately unbuttons her shirt enough to give a good glimpse of her bosom, and in a mellifluous voice, calls him her sweet baby boss. But Zhang is not falling for her cheap tricks and startles her by asking her to help him spend $900 million. Yao stands stunned, and once the figure settles in her brain, she screams and asks him if he has dealt with illegal substances. Zhang tells her matter-of-factly that he did some foreign trading with a friend in Gusu City. Ya suddenly pushes him, making him sit on the sofa, and straddles him, claiming all his assets. But Zhang pushes her off of him, and Yo calls him mean for rejecting her for the umpteenth time. She proposes that Zhang become one of the real estate investors with Boss Ma. Zhang finds the offer appealing and calls Boss Ma. As he explains how one of his partners vanished, incurring a loss and leaving him in debt, Zhang struggles to keep Yo off of him. She doesn't back off even as Zhang discusses such an important matter. Zhang agrees to give him $800 million, relieving Boss Ma of a considerable burden. He assures the income will be tripled as the project is very lucrative. Zhang has had enough of Yao slithering on him like a snake, so he clasps her head and lifts her off, making her squirm in pain. Zhang is about to hang up when Yo whispers in his ear, cursing him that he'll never find a wife. Zhang excuses himself, promising to discuss the details later, and then proceeds to tie Yo up. He then drags her by her collar as she cries, thinking about the trouble that awaits her. The real estate investment was a success, and Zhang gave the money to Song Yi to acquire an e-commerce company, which was named Imperial Consortium. The other company that was under Zhang was also renamed Imperial. Boss Ma's real estate company also changed its name to Imperial Real Estate. Zhang was made the chairman of the board. China was shocked by the emergence of a group of small industries, and more shocking was that a 20-year-old Jiang was leading the company. Even Jiang was surprised at the company's humongous growth. One day he gets a call from Song Yi, and Song Yi chides him for still working as a librarian. But Jiang argues that he doesn't have anything else to do as Yeo and Song Yi handle all the work. Song Yi changes the topic and asks him to stay at school as he is planning to come and wants Jiang to meet someone. Just as he gets off the phone, Lin walks behind him and asks him where he has been the entire week. His family was worried about him because nobody could reach him. She then hands him a picture of a girl that Jiang's mom asked Lin to pass on to Jiang. His mom wants him to go on a blind date with the woman in the photograph. Lin pouts as she talks about the girl, and Jiang notices it. Hiding his smirk, he tells Lin he is not into dating and says he won't go. When Lin tells him his mom has been working hard to arrange the meeting, Jiang says he'll convince his mom by saying he's already seeing someone. Lin hesitates a bit before asking if he has someone in mind, and he takes her name because his mom has been fond of Lin since childhood and will be thrilled when she'll come to know. Lin blushes hard and asks who would want to be his girlfriend. She is still in a frenzy when Jiang sees Song Yi and tells Lin he'll be leaving, but she is too occupied by her thoughts and blabbering things about their dating. The two men stare at her, clueless as to what is happening to her. They leave her be and walk out into the street, where Wang Yang greets Jiang and asks him if he missed him. Jiang has an intense look in his eyes before he asks Song Yi who the guy is. Wang Yang can't believe Jiang has already forgotten him. He yells out his name, but Jiang prefers to call him twerp. Jiang doesn't stop there and calls him an idiot for getting expelled just 4 days after Jiang had visited the school. Song Yi tells Jiang that Wang Yang is his new driver, baffling Jiang. But Song Yi assures him the kid is 18 and has recently got his license. Jiang doesn't get a say in it, and just like that, Wang Yang becomes his driver. Before leaving, Song Yi tells Jiang that he trained Wang Yang to become adept at martial arts and knows the streets very well. Wang Yang stopped listening to their conversation long ago as his eyes were glued to Jiang's car. He gets excited and calls Jiang Big Brother, asking him if he can take the car for a spin. He also asks about Wu Xingxin, but soon gets stepped on by Jiang, who asks him to stay away from her. He also instructs him to call him boss. Wang Yang then relays the message that the Wu brothers have invited him to dinner at Marriott Hotel. Jiang takes Wang Yang shopping with him, and they enter the hotel looking debonair. The Wu brothers greet Jiang and ask about the kid. Jiang warns them not to think less of the kid as they'll be surprised by his capabilities. They soon start drinking, and the brothers flatter Jiang by bringing up his fight with Wu Tansen and how Jiang won the fight. Jiang makes them stop their sycophancy and asks if they need something from him. The brothers cut the chase and tell him they have run into trouble. They had recently invested in a TV series whose actress, Lulu, had some ideas to make their company's business more lucrative. But before they could talk further, she was kidnapped by someone in the north. And when they sent their men to retrieve her, 20 of his men came back dead or gravely injured. They have hired men to tackle the Wu brothers' men, and they can't keep up if the struggle continues, as the thugs intend to keep Lulu for the next 3 months. They can't afford to lose her, and ask Jiang to help them get her back. Jiang asks them who these people are, and the brothers tell him they are people of the Naolin group. Jiang's face turns serious, and he chides the brothers for trying to make him a scapegoat. But the brother denies any connection of those thugs with Master Naolin. Instead, they're just some people on the side of the Ice City. They plead with Jiang to help them and promise proportionate compensation. Jiang thinks for some time before asking Wang Yang to call Tanzong Min. Once Tanzong recognizes it is Jiang, he cheerfully greets him and catches up from the last time they left after their spar. Jiang reciprocates and then asks and explains the reason for calling and asks if he can help with the matter in the Ice City. Jiang gives Tanzong a name, Tiger Ronking, and Tanzong seems to know the guy and the fact that many lives were lost in the rivalry. He assures Jiang to leave the matter to him as he, too, is unhappy with the guy making a fuss under his master, Naolin's grace. Jiang thanks Tanzong for his help and tells him to call him for any help he needs ever in his life. Tanzong offers to take Jiang to meet his master the next time he stops by and soon hangs up. Jiang tells the Wu brothers their issue has been resolved, and Ice City won't bother them again. Just then, Wu Zhang gets a call from Tiger Ronking, who apologizes profoundly for bothering them and pleads with him to let Jiang know they will not pose any problem and are even ready to compensate. Since Jiang's work is done, he gets ready to leave, but Wu Zhang insists he accompanies them to a nightclub. Jiang excuses himself to go to the washroom, while the others make their way to the VIP lounge. As he's walking towards the restroom, Jiang passes by a familiar face. He asks her to turn around, but the girl dashes and Jiang chases her. She would have made it away if her ankle didn't twist, and Jiang catches up, asking Wook Singson what on earth she's doing in the nightclub. Wook Singson struggles to speak, but Jiang wraps his coat around her and chides her for being there past her curfew time and wearing inappropriate clothing. Suddenly, Wook Singson bursts into tears and tells him she has no money. Jiang is surprised and realizes he must have forgotten to give her the month's allowance owing to his busy schedule, but he still says she should have called him. When she doesn't stop crying, Jiang admits it was his fault and gives her his credit card for the future so she never has to worry about money. He then asks her to pack her things as he prepares to send for someone to drive her home safely, but someone's voice distracts him. A group of middle-aged men approach them and address Wook Singson, teasing her for running away from them. Jiang asks Wook Singson if these men were harassing her, and she tells him the guys wanted her to have drinks with them and probably take advantage of her, so she ran. The guys don't back off and continue teasing and calling Wook Singson to entertain them, but Jiang kicks one of the guys before he can grab Wook Singson. The other guys recognize seeing Jiang with Wu Zong and back off, but Jiang is not done with the chubby guy who tried to grab Wook Singson. Jiang is ready to smash his face to a pulp and break his bones, but 3 men attack him before he could lay hands on the chubby guy. Wang Yang appears out of nowhere and injures the 3 attack with one stroke of his knife, apologizing for being late. He asks Jiang if he should eliminate all those men. Wang Yang single-handedly beats the goons while Wook Singson and Jiang stand by and watch. Suddenly, someone appears from the shadows, and the chubby man addresses him as Zhao Qi, asking him to finish the brats off. Wang Yang offers to take care of him, but is astonished when Zhao Qi breaks Wang Yang's blade. Jiang is impressed and thinks the kid's talent is being wasted in such a place. Wang Yang has a hard time keeping up and questions Zhao Qi if he would let people harass a woman in their nightclub. But Zhao Qi shows no concern and says his job is to beat anybody causing trouble to a pulp. Wang Yang takes a serious stance when he realizes talking will not help and gives a final warning. In the turn of events, Wang Yang is seriously injured in the fight and coughs up blood. The bat Zhao Qi carries is heavier than it seems and has damaged his internals from the impact. Wook Singson gasps as she sees Wang Yang cough blood, but Jiang can't hold in his laughter seeing the Torp Song Yi trained to get beat up like that. Suddenly Zhao Qi subdues Wang Yang and is about to land the final blow on his head when Jiang grabs Zhao Qi's arm and hurls him in the air before holding his body upside down. Jiang threatens to smash his head, but that single move is enough to intimidate Zhao Qi, and he accepts his defeat. Jiang is annoyed it finished before it even started, and he asks Wang Yang to get up as they are leaving. But Wang Yang doesn't get up even after Jiang asks him to because he is disheartened after he loses the fight. He cannot accept defeat and lets out a frustrated sigh. But Jiang reminds him that people who keep dwelling on a past mistake never get better. One needs to learn from it. Jiang hands Wang Yang a lollipop to cheer him up, and Wang Yang promises he'll never lose a fight again. Soon the owner of the nightclub reaches the scene and disperses the crowd by offering free drinks. He then questions his staff and yells at Zhao Qi for messing things up, but gets interrupted by Wu Zhong, who threatens to smash the place to pieces if he continues disrespecting Jiang like that. The owner stands still, too stunned to move, when he realizes Jiang is the underworld overlord. At that moment, Mr. Dewu enters and tells the owner that Jiang is a very important guest, making the owner apologize immediately and show deference. Jiang asks Wang Yang to drop Wook Singson home. As the two drive home, Wook Singson asks Wang Yang why he's hanging out with Jiang. Wang Yang tells her how Jiang gave him a job as his driver after he got suspended from school. Wook Singson hesitates as she confesses Jiang is not really her brother. Wang Yang doesn't look surprised and says he learned about it while training under Song Yi. Wook Singson reveals that Jiang has greatly helped her and her mother and treats her like his own sister. Wang Yang agrees that Jiang is very kind and treats his people with dignity and respect. He also realized how naive he was back then and pursued Wook Singson only because he was infatuated with her beauty. But he has learned a lot since, and he asks her not to worry about her mother and promises to keep it a secret and help her whenever she needs it. Wook Singson thanks Wang Yang as this is the first time they ever had a real conversation. Back at the nightclub, Wu Zong hurdles the owner and his men in a private room, where he asks Jiang how he will punish them for disrespecting him. Jiang asks Zhao Qi what he would do in such a situation, to which Zhao Qi grabs his bat and swings it, shocking everybody. The owner calls his move stupid, but he ends up hitting his left arm, breaking it. Jiang is impressed by Zhao Qi's skills and offers him a job, while he asks the owner to shut the place after how he was treated. As for the chubby guy, Jiang is particularly annoyed by him because he pursued Wu Xingxin, and above that, he threatens that if something happens to him, his brother, the deputy director of the Lower East Side Police Department, will not leave them. Infuriated by his audacious behavior, Jiang asks Wu Tian to cut off his private parts, as Wu Tian suggested. Jiang has had enough for the day and leaves, wondering what Wu Zhang has arranged for him. He has a nosebleed when he sees a stunning woman sitting on his bed waiting for him, and soon one thing leads to another. The next morning, Jiang leaves before the woman wakes up, and outside of the hall, he is greeted by two men, who hand in the keys and some documents. They tell him the villa's worth $300 million in Pearl Park, a prime land, is a gift from the Wu brothers. The villas are renovated and ready to move in for him. Jiang asks the men to relay his gratitude to the Wu brothers and heads back on his own. After getting a change of clothes, he heads to the library to read books and learn everything he can about the world using his memory cheat ability. Once he's done for the day, he leaves but is stopped by Lin outside school. Jiang grabs her hand, and before she knows it, she's sitting beside him in his car, and Wang Yang drives them to the location of the villas. The villas are more than they could have imagined, with covered parking space, numerous spare rooms and guest rooms, private bars, recreational room, a cinema, a gym, and indoor and outdoor pools are some of the facilities among a plethora of others available in the area. Lin is flabbergasted when she hears the price, but Jiang assures her he is rich. He says his future wife is going to live there, so he can't afford to go cheap, making Lin blush. Jiang also plans to hire maids, workers, drivers, and security on whom he can rely, but then thinks Wang Yang can handle all these duties. Just then, his phone rings, and the editor of Swift Culture Press, the company that published Jiang's work, tells him that his book is listed in all major bookstores around China, and they were wondering if he could join in a signing event for the opening. Jiang outrightly declines because he thinks it is too embarrassing, but ends up giving in when the editor persuades him. On the day of the opening, a crowd has already started to form from the wee hours of the day. Jiang is nervous and shivers as the old Jiang appears and asks if he is busy. The old Jiang tells him he sold 3.2 billion copies in the first week, but the new Jiang says he has nothing to do with it and wouldn't want his pictures or personal information anywhere in the book, as it wouldn't affect his prestige points. The old Jiang says he is wrong about that and explains that every 10,000 clicks on the web novel earn him 1 prestige point, and every hard copy of the book sold earns him 0.01 point, and to date, he has accumulated more than 32,000 prestige points. Old Jiang then turns to leave and opens the portal, but before leaving, he advises new Jiang to publish more such books. Jiang takes a shower and strategizes how to earn more points, but the entire thing gets him stressed, so he decides to take some time off and go out to eat. He chooses to have street food and drools at the mere thought. And once he finds a place, he orders lots of dishes and starts eating when the waitresses come with the beer. One of the waitresses is Wu Xingxin, and she freezes upon seeing Jiang, but quickly composes herself and tries to run. But it is too late as Jiang sees her and catches hold of her. He asks her what her excuse is this time, and she says she is afraid to spend too much money. Jiang pulls her cheek hard and asks her to come with him. Wu Xingxin innocently asks if he's taking her to his house, but he smacks her on her head and says he's sending her back to her house. He asks her to quit her job immediately, reminding her of her school the next day, and puts a curfew time on her. Wu Xingxin is nervous as she walks Jiang to her home. She doesn't know if Jiang is angry or just embarrassed by her, and after walking in silence for a while, they reach an apartment. An old couple is sitting outside when they see Wu Xingxin come back and talk to her, asking about the man accompanying her. She introduces Jiang as her professor, and suddenly Jiang finds himself surrounded by neighbors who shower him with all sorts of compliments and comments about how pitiful Wu Xingxin's situation is. Wu Xingxin, however, drags Jiang away from the crowd, excusing herself owing to some important work. She takes him to a more desolate-looking apartment, and Jiang offers to let her and her mother live in one of his mansions as he doesn't like her apartment. But Wu Xingxin refuses politely. Just then, Jiang hears some men asking one of their members to hurry as they're marking it. Jiang asks Wu Xingxin what a demolition crew is doing there, but Wu Xingxin doesn't know. Jiang lets it go, thinking Wu Xingxin can move into one of his mansions if the house is demolished. As they are walking, one of the crew members comments on Wu Xingxin, but Zhang threatens him to watch his mouth. Another crew member steps in and says it was a joke. Wu Xingxin tries to calm down the situation and pulls Zhang to get out of there. But when they use profanities and call Wu Xingxin a derogatory name, the name of a joke, Zhang turns back and lands a solid punch on one of the man's face, sending him flying. The other members warn Zhang about being outnumbered, but Zhang is in no mood to back down. Zhang thinks if he shows the guys any mercy, they may create problems for Wu Xingxin in the future, so he doesn't think twice before punching another guy and asking him which company sent them to tag the building at night. The man, now bleeding and bruised from the punch, says he shouldn't be messing with them and adds he shouldn't have offended the employees of the company like this. When Zhang asks him again, the man reveals they work for Imperial Real Estate, and Zhang is their boss who he doesn't want to offend. Zhang lets out a sigh and tells them he is Zhang Yi. The group stands, mouth agape at the revelation, and then apologizes for their behavior. They fear they'll be fired, but Zhang asks them to leave and see a doctor for the injured. He also says their medical bills will be compensated, bringing tears of joy to the gang's faces, and the matter settles down. Zhang turns to Wu Xingxin and tells him the group works for his company, and the place will be demolished, so he offers to shift her to one of his 3-bedroom apartments. Wu Xingxin finally agrees and reminds herself to pay back for his kindness in the future. As Zhang is about to leave, Wu Xingxin gives him a peck on his cheek, and Zhang flicks her on her forehead. The next day, Zhang is busy reading in the library when a man approaches him and asks if he understands the content of the book he is reading. Zhang says he does and proceeds to appreciate the idea, but only in theory and not in practicality. The man agrees with Zhang's understanding of the philosophy, and the two strikes up a conversation. The man reveals he has been observing him read every day, and not just one but dozens of books. Zhang reveals he has a photographic memory, so he reads to remember the content vividly and use the knowledge wherever necessary. The man spots an economics book and asks Zhang's opinion on China and the world economy. Zhang's answer impresses the man so much that he suggests Zhang should be a lecturer instead of a librarian. He then introduces himself as Fang Tiandu, the president and dean of Tiandu University. Zhang realizes the man standing before him is a big deal, as he is the author of Domestic Authority on Economics, an influential person in the business circle, and has also served as the national advisor for the government. Many of China's government policies are written by him. Zhang immediately gets up from his seat and shakes hands with the man with many accolades. The dean cannot let such talents go to waste and appoints Zhang as the visiting professor at the university. Zhang is reluctant, but the dean very calmly threatens to expel Zhang from the university if he doesn't take the job. Zhang stands there, unable to comprehend that an older man has just scammed him. The following day, Zhang enters the class well prepared, and as soon as he walks in, Lin's friends pull her to ask if the new teacher is her cousin. Lin has a dumbfounded look when she sees Zhang on the podium, who then introduces himself. During the introduction, he spots Lin but stays unfazed. He soon starts the lecture, and even though he had said he doesn't have any experience in teaching, the students think otherwise because they find his teaching methods very polished and the concepts easy to follow. Zhang gracefully finishes his lecture and closes the class for the day to the admiration of his students who deem him competent. One of the male students asks him not to end the lecture immediately, but to elaborate on another topic, but he hurriedly leaves the class with a promise to do that in the next class. Zhang exits the class in the wake of comments from both male and female students, gushing over his competence and wondering about what he does in his free time. The girls form groups to discuss his looks and contest for his attention, which embarrasses Lin Wan especially because she was mentioned in the discussion by one of the girls. Zhang arrives home, totally exhausted from the day's work, and changes into his housewear as he casually drinks a bottle of water by the refrigerator. Later, Zhang learns that a student secretly recorded the details of his class and posted it on the internet, and the video has attracted a lot of attention from experts in the economic industry, who are full of praise for his knowledge in financial-related topics. The system rewards those with prestige, and since Zhang has now attained a level of prestige from the attention his lecture has been receiving, the system rewards him with 1,000 prestige points because of his newly found popularity in the economic sector. Zhang seems to be having a conversation with his inner person as a part of him disagrees with the lecturing proposition and the other agrees. Zhang also learns that the class earned him 40 points per person, which is much higher than most professions, and somehow gets convinced to take 2 classes per week, and he reluctantly agrees to it. After his next class, he receives a surprise call from Zhao Wuji. Jiang excitedly answers the calls and tells him that he is a visiting professor at the university. Zhao goes straight to the point by asking him to take a vacation to accompany him to Longquan, because they need to see someone useful to Jiang's future. Jiang meets with Zhao Wuji and sees that his health is not getting any better, and he is slowly becoming worse in his wheelchair. Jiang has been waiting for a suitable reason before giving Zhao the life of Dan, but resolves to give him at that moment since his health is worsening. Jiang kneels in front of Zhao's wheelchair and explains that the life of Dan is a temporary cure, which can give Zhao good health for only a year before he returns to his previous self. He tells Zhao and his companion, Wang, that the life of Dan is the last product from his master, and it cannot be made again. Jiang lies to them that he asked his master the last time they met, and he assured him that the life Dan can suppress Zhao's illness. Zhao thanks Jiang and tells him that he is ready to live a good life for a year, which is enough for him to do whatever he likes. Jiang explains how Life Dan works and tells him that for a full year, all his injuries and health issues will be cured, but after then, the effect of Life Dan will weigh off and he agrees. He gives Zhao the Life Dan to swallow and instantly, he began to feel changes in his body, and he sprang up from his wheelchair to move around. He leads Jiang out for their journey to Lingquan and orders a bottle of wine because he has been wanting to drink one. Jiang notices that Zhao's mood has considerably improved as he chats away during the flight and directs the attendant to run errands for him. At their destination, they are received by Director Sun and other people who are overexcited to meet them. Jiang tries to understand the relationship between Zhao and the men as he does not know him to associate with a lot of people except Wu Tangxi. Zhao makes the introduction between Jiang and Director Sun, and Director Sun begins to give them precautions about the city. Zhao says nice things about Director Sun and how important he is to Jiang on their way out of the airport, but Director Sun tries to behave humble by telling Jiang that he is only an ordinary man in the city. He gives Jiang his card to contact him whenever he needs something and brings back his attention to Zhao. He asks him about his health and how he managed to be cured after the best doctors tried to heal him without a breakthrough. Zhao tells him that Jiang is responsible for his healing and Director Sun tells him that he must be very talented. He begs Jiang to also examine him because he has been down with constant headaches. Jiang tries to tell him that he is not very good with medicine, but the man thinks that he is modest and waves off the comment. Without experiencing any traffic, they arrive at the Castle Peak Villa to see the old man whom Director Sun works for. Jiang takes note of his environment and remembers from history that the castle is not a place for random people, and it is owned by Meng Zhongzheng, who was famous in China's military and political circle, alongside Zhao Wuji's father, who was his subordinate. Inside the castle, the old man offers them a seat while Jiang continues his assessment of the man and his property. The old man begins to interact with them, and he informs Zhao that he heard of his illness and thought that Zhao would possibly die before him. He expresses his anger at the fact that Zhao did not come to him while he was sick. Zhao tells him that he has a year more to live because of Jiang, whom he constantly refers to as his brother. The old man tells Zhao that 1 year is not good enough because he promised his father that he would take care of him like his grandson. Therefore, he will call someone to treat him. Zhao insists and tells him to give his inheritance to Jiang because he trusts him. The old man decides to indulge Jiang by asking him if he can save his grandson Zhao. Jiang tells him that his uncle can do it, though his methods are questionable. Though he calmly talks and interacts with them, Jiang is angry within himself because he does not have the required prestige points to save him. The old man begs Jiang to try and vows that he will be greatly rewarded if he can save Zhao, and even if he cannot fully save him, he will live by the agreement. They begin to argue among themselves and the old man gets mad at Zhao because he is 40, but he does not always act like his age. The old man dismisses everyone because he is tired and tells them to look around the place and rest so that later they will revisit the issue. As they walk out, he calls them back and cautions them to be careful with the people they associate with, because his influence may not be enough to save them from some evil powers around Lingquan. Director Sun explains that the old man is referring to a troublesome kid who has become a terror within the place because the old man named a different heir. He begs Jiang to avenge him and beat up the kid if he can because he has influenced his son negatively, which he does not like. Jiang thinks that he has entered into a bad situation, but he keeps his cool and listens to everything Director Sun and Wine told him. As they continued walking, the troublesome Meng that they were talking about showed up with threats for Wang. Wang is unable to answer or confront him because he has an embarrassing video about him that he can post on YouTube to destroy him and his career in martial arts. Director's son quickly takes Wang away to avoid further embarrassment and leaves Jian with the troublesome Meng. Jiang is very uncomfortable with him because of the way he continuously tries to touch him while talking to him. Meng walks Jiang to his car and Jiang cringes at the unnecessarily vain plate number. Meng tells him not to complain and rather feel worthy to ride in his exotic car, because everyone in the city knows that the car belongs to him, which is a form of honor. He tells Jiang that even though he hates Zhao, he will make Jiang have fun and will not punish him with hatred. He fails to notice that Jiang is not comfortable with everything he is doing, especially his frequent touch. Meng continues to ramble on and on about the old man and how he is only accommodating Jiang in his city because he has promised to be nice to him. He sees Jiang as a village boy who is not up to his standard as a city boy, and this amuses Jiang, but he says nothing to him. Instead, he realizes why Zhao told him to show no mercy to him. On the way to their destination, Meng badmouths Zhao and tells Jiang not to associate with him anymore as he is of no use. He tells him to be close to his grandfather, the old man who will in turn reward him with anything he wants. Jiang is angry at the statement against Zhao and Meng challenges him to a fight, telling him that he cannot do anything to him because he owns the city. They arrive at a hangout spot to meet other people their age, both boys and girls who are already speculating to see Meng new friend. Jiang drags him out of the car and begins to beat him. Meng struggles to free himself while shouting that even the old man does not beat him, but Jiang does not let go. Meng friends rose with bottles to fight Jiang on his behalf, but they only stood at a distance to threaten Jiang. He orders them to retaliate on his behalf, but Jiang dodges them. All hell broke loose with Meng who grew red with anger at Jiang's audacity in his city. He tells Jiang that Zhao is only an adopted grandson, but he is the real grandson of the old man, so he should be treated with respect. Jiang angrily shuts him up and tells him that he is only a sad little boy who does not know the true meaning of hardship, and if he cannot face off with him, he should get someone to do that or else he would keep receiving the beating. The girls that were initially waiting for Meng began to fawn over Jiang and his courage to confront Meng which further annoys him. He rushes away to his car to get a gun, but Jiang is unfazed by the action. Rather, he continues to allow the girls to distract him. Meng rushes back with threats to shoot Jiang, and Jiang taunts him by calling him gay because of his pink hair and the way he was constantly touching Jiang as he talked. This pisses off Meng and he becomes angry again. Jiang tells him that he cannot shoot the gun and that he is only showing off. He taunts him to prove that he is not gay by looking at the girls, and while he does that, Jiang snatches the gun from him and Meng begins to beg him. Meng promises to take him as his brother and vows not to cause trouble anymore. He tries to turn everything into a joke that it is their way of welcoming people to Linquan, and he was not trying to make trouble in any way. Meng quickly announces to everyone present that Jiang is his brother and should be treated with the utmost respect. The girls began to argue among themselves over who should have his attention or not. As they were going to eat, Jiang remained vigilant in case Meng had other tricks up his sleeves to play. One of the girls offers him food as he prepares to dig in. Meng calls him to watch out. Jiang understands that Meng may try to double-cross him, so he spent 10 prestige points to check the food and discover that the wine was drugged before he was given, but he pretended not to know. Now, he sees men with sticks and some others dressed in army uniforms approaching him, but he continues to act nonchalantly while making plans on how to deal with them in his mind. Meng saunters to Jiang's front with pride to announce that he underestimated him earlier, which was a mistake, but he has now drugged him and will take his revenge. Meng instructs Jiang to fall at his feet and beg because he has the place surrounded by 70 to 80 men and the drugs will soon kick in to make him weak, but he will be saved if he grovels at his feet. Meng went all out in preparing his revenge, including the poisoned wine, the thugs and some military men in case the first two did not work out. The thugs rush towards Jiang to attack him in hopes that they will be able to impress Meng and gain favors from him. The military men stand to the side to observe the fight and wonder if the thugs will be any match for Jiang. The military boys tell their master that the thugs can handle Jiang and they will not need to intervene in the action. Meng Huang went through a lot of trouble to get the military guys into the open for his intentions, but the leader of the military guys began to consider a retreat with the way Jiang was handling the thugs in front of him. By the way, the girls cheer for Jiang as he fights his way through the thugs. Meng Huang grew angry that after all he had to go through to bring the military guys, they had refused to fight for him. He began to insult them, and they threatened to report him to their higher authority, who will deal with him regardless of his family. One of the soldiers moves closer to Meng Huang and whispers to him that Jiang has the strength to send everyone on his path to the hospital, including Meng Huang, so to avoid that embarrassment, he should consider retreating. As they are watching him, they observe that he is in the class of the National Masters, and to fight against those kinds of people, 4 helicopters and 20 snipers before they can win him. The military boss reveals that only a handful of people in the whole country can compete with Jiang's skills, and even then, with his abilities, he is a high step master. There are only about 3 such people. Each one is hidden and mysterious, and cannot be seen easily. The soldiers start to make fun of Meng Huang that he has revealed the 4th person with such abilities, and that makes him a lucky person who could easily win a lottery game if he tried with such luck. Meng Huang hugs Jiang and begins to beg him for pardon again, that his previous attempt was also a joke. But Jiang was not having it. He decides to teach him a lesson so that he will not become worse when he grows up. Meanwhile, the girls are still in a corner begging for his attention, and wondering why he is ignoring them even though they are very attractive. Jiang pulls Meng Huang closer and gives him a stern warning to stop trying him in any way, because he will no longer take it. He tells him that he has only decided to overlook his wrongdoings because of the old man, and not because of Meng Huang himself. As he talks to him, Meng Huang barely pays attention to all he is being told, because he is busy thinking about whether he is straight or not. After the warning, he behaves like a humble person and makes a promise to Jiang that he will no longer be troublesome. Captain Yang Yang steps forward and introduces himself to Jiang as the head of the Red Knife Army. Jiang introduces himself as a professor at Tiandu University to Captain Yang Yang, and Meng Huang wonders when he became a professor because he works for Zhao Wuji. The captain tells Jiang that since he is Zhou's protege, he hopes to work with him in future. He tells Jiang that they have heard of him from different people within his city, which is not pleasing to Jiang. Captain Yang Yang tells him that they should have dinner together later as he needs to report back to base at the moment, so that they will get to know each other better. Their conversation annoys Meng Huang, and he accuses Captain Yang Yang of trying to take his brother away. Captain Yang Yang tells Meng Huang that he is going to let everyone know that he is a coward, and that nobody will work for him or agree to wine and dine with him anymore. After he left with his group, Jiang asks Meng Huang about him, and Meng Huang tells him that he is the hidden son of the emperor, and an important person within the place. Captain Yang Yang is the youngest and brightest person in the military, and Meng Huang tells Jiang that in the future he will be a force to reckon with since he already has so much achievement. Meng Huang explains Captain Yang Yang's ancestry to Jiang and why he is seen as someone of great importance, and Jiang compares the information with what he learned from Zhao. After waiting for Jiang's attention without getting it, the girls cut into the conversation, telling Meng Huang that it is now their turn to speak with Jiang. The girls offered to take him to a luxurious hotel with a good place for him to eat and relax, and he follows them. Meng Huang is upset that Jiang did not take his car, but he is taking Director Sun Sun's car, and stomps away angrily. On the way to the hotel, the system upgrades Jiang with 100,000 prestige points and performs new upgrades for him. The system informs Jiang that there is a new mission, and it involves important details. The mission is named King of Heaven, with a reward of 300 points, or an advance free draw converted 3 times. However, if he fails the mission, 300 prestige points will be deducted, and if he does not meet the requirement, he will face a heavy penalty, and his abilities will be decreased. If the penalty is not enough, his life will be decreased by 10,000 points per year. The mission is to take about a year, and it must include certain places. Jiang confronts the system that the mission is too difficult, but the system tries to make him see the advantage of taking up the task. He tells Jiang that his prestige points will be gained at a higher rate, and more people can contribute for him, which will make him faster. Jiang tries to observe the weapons at his disposal for the mission, but they are different from the modern standard. He complains that the requirements of the mission are confusing and too much, because he cannot fight with swords in the modern age when he can use guns. The upgrade continues, and he obtains the mastery of gambling out of everything else that he could have been given, but he accepts it grudgingly. The girls wake Jiang from his sleep as they arrive at their destination. Meng Huang also comes and asks one of the followers named Dry if he prepared the hall, and he explains how they got other people to move away for them. Everyone tries to please Zhang and get on his good side because of his new reputation. The other people they displaced from the hall came to confront Meng Huang, and they get into a heated argument. Meng Huang threatens them that he is the emperor of the city, and he has the backing of Zhao Wuji, but it does not scare the people. As they continued their argument, the Southern Tiger, Mao Chengshin, arrives and asks Meng Huang to explain his last statement. The Southern Tiger from Xinjiang, Mao Chengshin, is the chief police officer at the government department, and Zhang is in awe of him. Meng Huang inwardly cringes at this mistake of making a statement that insulted the man. He refuses to admit it. Instead, he begs for more trouble by telling him that he said what he said because he does not think the Southern Tiger has any ability. If not, he would have defeated Zhao Wuji in their confrontation long ago. The men in the Southern Tiger's entourage become angry at Meng Huang's audacity to speak to their boss in such a manner, but he holds them back and tells Meng Huang that his issue with Zhao Wuji is not his business. The Southern Tiger informs Meng Huang that he had earlier booked the room, therefore he has to use it. Zhang, who has been watching the exchange, finally intervenes, and by telling the Southern Tiger that they are all reputable people and should not fight. Since they are already there, he tells the Southern Tiger to let them finish and leave, then he can have the place to himself or look for a new location. The Southern Tiger's men become angry once more at such audacity to challenge their boss and ask to know who he is. The Southern Tiger boasts that he has an elite force with him comprising of men from the police command and some other noble people who can easily take him up, but Zhang does not look bothered by his rant. Instead, he calmly introduces himself as Jiang Bai of Taindu. On hearing this, the Southern Tiger tells him that he has been waiting for the opportunity to meet him, but they will continue another time and exits with his people. Zhang tells Meng Huang not to jubilate, because the matter is not yet over but has just begun. He tells them that Zhao Wuji and the Southern Tiger had issues because his wife left him for Zhao, since he wanted power more than her, and he is still out for revenge. After dining together, Durai takes Zhang and everyone to a new club that just opened. He informs Zhang that his friend specially brought girls from the nearby college for the opening ceremony, and Zhang thanks him for the gesture. Inside the club, Dry locates his female friend Dan, who accuses him of making them bored because of the long wait. Dry introduces her to his people as his friend from the nearby college who brought her friends to the club for a celebration. A girl named Yuri tries to make conversation with Zhang and asks what he does for a living, but he pays little attention to her and only gives one-word answers to her questions. Zhang tells her that he is a teacher, and she automatically cusses her luck for getting paired up with someone that has a low-paying job. Dagan walks up to the pair and greets Zhang. She excuses Yidi and offers to talk to her on his behalf. Taking her to the side, Dagan informs Yadi that Dry would give her 200 if she spends time with Zhang, and she agrees. Zhang listens to their conversation and cusses Dry for offering money to the girl for her to spend time with him. Dagan leaves them alone, and Yudi moves closer to him and offers to pour his drink in a more friendly manner, unlike when they first started talking. Zhang settles down and becomes at ease with her, and they both begin to talk in their own space while everyone else minded their business. For about 10 minutes, Yi entertains and attends to him, and she regularly refills his drink, which he likes. Later, Dan pulls Yidi away because she is enjoying herself way too much. The other girls join them, and they head to the restroom together for a discussion. Dagan tells Yunai that she'll give her the details of what she is to do in the restroom, but she needs to take the opportunity to take Zhang to the hotel room, where they will set the plan she is to tell her in motion. Zhang is now alone since the girls went to the restroom together, and Dry uses the opportunity to talk to him. He asks if Zhang is interested in Yai, and if he would like to take her home, and Zhang confronts him about the 200 payment. Dry tells Zhang that he is misunderstanding the issue because he is only trying to help a poor girl in need. Earlier, Dan whispered to him that Yai is a naive and innocent girl in need of a rich guy to entertain to earn money to open a flower shop with her boyfriend, so he decided to help her with the money so that another person will not take advantage of her. Zhang thinks that he still got played even though Dan and Dry are trying to do what is best for Yai, but he says nothing to Dry and just continued to look at the clubgoers who are having fun on the dance floor. On the way back from the bathroom, Dan calls out to Dry by his real name, Mai San, to save her because a pervert is harassing her on the dance floor. Meng Huang and Dry rush to attack them in their usual aggressive manner, and they order the guy to leave Dan and the other girls alone because they belong to them. The guy insists that he just wants to have fun with them for a bit and return them afterwards, but Manhwa and Dry were not having it. Manhwa and Dry become angry that they were referring to the girls in that manner, and they decide to teach them how to be a gentleman. A fight ensued between both groups, and Manhwa and Dry injured the other boys. Wang Xiao, the injured guy, tells his boys to do something, but Manhwa threatens them not to come close or they will face his wrath. He tells Zhang to praise him for acting cool, and he applauds them for defending the girls. The other boys vow that it is not over as they leave the club. One of the guys in the crowd tells the others that they should fulfill Wang Xiao's orders by picking a fight with Manhwa. Zhang is alarmed because he cannot allow anything to happen to Manhwa as it will affect Zhao Wuji and the old man, so he intervenes and commands everyone to stop. The girls see Zhang's actions as a noble one, and they immediately flock around him to ask questions and fawn over him. Didi asks him if he teaches of any of the guys that showed up, and Dan's friend gushes over Zhang. Just as everything began to wind down and the shouting stopped, one of Wang Xiao's guys confronts Manhwa and his guys again that his father is from the Dongqing police district, so they cannot come at him. Zhang watches the exchange from behind and says nothing because he knows that Manhwa can handle the boy. Manhwa tells his boys to whack the boy, and another fight started on the dance floor. All the thugs began to fight each other, but Manhwa's boys had the upper hand and they beat the opposing guys mercilessly. Just then, the police enter the place and command everyone to freeze, while they began to search the crowd. The boy's father calls for an ambulance to take his son to the hospital and asks to see who attacked his son. Manhwa fearlessly tells him that he is trying to use the law to cover up for his bad son, and the policeman tells his officers to have him arrested because he is part of the people from the underworld. One of the opposing boys manages to stand up, and he points out the members of Manhwa's group, including Zhang and the girls, but he tells the police that Zhang and the girls were not part of the fight. The police made the arrest, and all the girls were crying over getting arrested and possibly getting expelled from the school. Zhang tells them not to worry. At the Dongqing District Police Station, a senior officer tells Xiao Zhang that he is in luck because they have some people for him to interrogate, and they are hoping that he will do them proud by not messing up the interrogation. Xiao Zhang eagerly promises his superior that he will not let them down, and he will get every information from them. Yuan, Director Sun's son, Zhang, and Dry seats together, while the girls fearfully huddle together in one spot. Manhwa sits in a separate place and acts nonchalantly as they await interrogation. Xiao Zhang walks in and Manhwa begins to mock them that he is not afraid of a little boy like him. Xiao Zhang becomes angry and lets them know that he will not take any insults from them because he is not a kid. He starts the interrogation with Yuan, who purposely makes Xiao Zhang angry by telling him that he is unemployed when he was asked what he does for a living. The other officer holds Xiao Zhang from beating Yuan, who is unbothered by Xiao Zhang's actions. Xiao lets go of Yuan's rudeness and asks for his guardian's name. He gives his parents' name and their portfolio, and when the policemen realized who his parents were in society, they knew they were in trouble. Yuan tells them that they are yet to realize the extent of the trouble they have caused themselves, because the other boy's parents have more reputation than his parents in the city. One of the police officers takes a closer look at Dry and recognizes him as Mai San, one of their top boss's sons. Each of the boys began to drop their family names, and the young officers began to cry and curse their boss for putting them in trouble to save his troublesome son. The young officers resolve that they may not have jobs to go back to anymore. But just then they receive a call to let the boys and girls go, and they revolve that maybe they still have a chance. Secretary Huang Yuling, the father of the boys, screams at Xiao Zhang for letting the criminals go when he did not authorize their release. He asks Xiao Zhang to mention to the person that gave him orders to release the criminals and why he would defy his orders, but Xiao Zhang sarcastically tells him that people are afraid of dying and not afraid of him. Just then, Secretary Huang Yuling hears his name from the doorway, and his eyes widen in realization because he was backing the door. His boss, Xiao Zhengyue, tells him that he wrongly arrested people even though his son is the real criminal, and abused his subordinates because he handed over power to him while he was away. Another officer handcuffs Secretary Huang Yuling and leads him away while Manhwa hugs his uncle Xiao for coming to his rescue. He begins to cry and exaggerates the whole issue that they were trying to kill him, and Zhang calls him a spoiled brat. After leaving the police station, Zhang went back to the house with Yai to hang out. In the morning, Zhou Wuji calls to find out if Jiang enjoyed himself with the activities of the previous day. Jiang tells him to say the real reason for the call, and Zhou Wuji tells him that someone informed him that Jiang returned home the previous day with a girl and he got curious. He tells Jiang to prepare himself for a meeting with one of his old friends who has something to offer them. Jiang asks for the details of the meeting and Zhou Wuji tells him that they are meeting Lai Qingdi, one of the 4 overlords of the Dragon Emperor underworld. Jiang immediately sits up from the bed and requests for the time and location of the meeting, so that he will prepare. Zhou Wuji offers to send a car to pick Jiang up and ended the call. Meanwhile, Didi wakes up to the call and eavesdrops on the conversation. She thinks that it would be good for her if she can look for a way to marry Jiang. Jiang thinks that the meeting must be important for Zhou Wuji to invite him to tag along and decides to go and hear what it is about. He asks if she can follow him to the meeting and he permits her since they were going to eat. Jiang prepares for the meeting with Yadi and they leave the house together. On their way they meet Manhwa and his companions and he asks where Jiang was headed to. Jiang tells him that he is meeting up with a friend and Manhwa is surprised that Jiang has another friend in the city aside from him. Manhwa tells him that it is a meeting with Lai Qingdi, one of the 4 overlords of the Dragon Emperor underworld. He tells them that they are free to come along if they want to accompany him, and Zhou Wuji will also be at the meeting. Manhwa is not familiar with the name, but Dry and Yuan think that they may be unworthy to share a table with someone like Lai Qingdi. The boys consider that they may be sent out of the place if they try to go with Jiang, but Jiang does not see it that way. Since they refuse to go, he leaves with Yadi, but Manhwa tells him that Yadi is unqualified to attend such meetings because of the kind of people that will be there. Yi agrees not to go and begs Jiang to call her after the meeting. Jiang arrives at the meeting venue to meet bodyguards everywhere, and he understood that the meeting must be serious and dignified. Inside the meeting place, he sees Lai Qingdi and considers him a harmless man because of his appearance. Zhou Wuji welcomes Jiang and introduces him to Lai Qingdi, but he tells Jiang that he prefers to be called Shuji. Jiang is surprised because the director Shuji knows is a famous philanthropist who is the director of the Charity Federation. Not only is he a giver, but he is a simple person who avoids conflict. Lai Qingdi acts humble and tells Jiang not to mind all that Zhou Wuji have said because the position suits him and allows him to be charitable towards family and friends, and also benefits him in avoiding conflict and helping people to resolve conflicts. Jiang is also introduced to the Tiger of Southern Xinjiang, King Yin Zidao, who is a powerful fist master and one of the 3 first step masters in China. Jiang walks in like a boss and seats among the elders without greeting them, which King Yin Zidao considers rude, because he believes elders should be respected. Jiang observes that the man's qi is strong and watches him as he controls objects around him. Lai Qingdi tells Zhou Wuji that Jiang is too young to be his successor, so King Yin will have to test his abilities. Zhou Wuji admits that Jiang is quite young, and in order to stabilize their overall power and reputation, they are capable of handling anyone who dares to offend them, so Jiang is not to be underestimated. Jiang is to face off with Shi Changsheng to test his abilities, because the others are doubting him. King Yin Zidao swiftly attacks Jiang, and he manages to contain the blow with his fist. Zhou Wuji commends King Yin Zidao's fastness, and the way he carries himself as he continues to go against Jiang. Jiang pulls a stunt to stop the next attack from King Yin Zidao, which surprises the older man. Jiang tells King Yin Zidao that he is not too bad because he blocked a 1,000-pound force, but his fist is stronger than he thinks. He dashes off again and tells King Yin Zidao to follow him, and the old man increases his speed because he does not want such a young person to win a challenge against him. King Yin Zidao dodges into the air and holds out his hand against Jiang within the air, but Jiang dodges to the side and tells him that he has clearly underestimated his power. King Yin Zidao thinks that Jiang must be distracted by all the talking and decides to use the opportunity to go after him, but again, Jiang proves his ability to the old man be escaping from him. King Yin Zidao wonders how it is possible for Jiang to do all he is doing, but he says nothing because he refuses to let Jiang see his effect on him. Jiang asks him if he would like to continue, and they start another round of intense fighting. Lai Qingdi admits that after seeing Jiang for himself, he now believes that there is someone that can surpass Shi Changsheng and even follow in his footsteps. King Yin Zidao comes to a halt and makes the peace sign. He admits Jiang's talent and tells him that he is yet to see anyone like him in 100 years, and he may just be the strongest in China and may attain it in the world, but he cannot date Shi Changsheng yet. Jiang asks King Yanzidao how it is possible that even with the system's help, he is unfit to challenge and defeat Shi Changxing. King Yanzidao tells him that 15 years ago, he met Shi Changxing and lost miserably. He describes the encounter for them, which leaves them with a cold feeling. Shi Changxing only used a single finger stroke for him, and he was bedridden for 3 years until he recovered fully from the dreadful experience. Zhao Wuji tells Jiang not to bother about Shi Changxing because he cannot be fully described to Jiang's understanding at the moment. But he promises that he will not be a problem to Jiang in any way, and tells him not to feel too bad about what they have told him. Lai Qingdi tells Jiang that all those who believe in superiority and dominance will suffer loss at the hands of Shi Changxing at least once in their lives. Everyone admits that it is a sore subject that they should not discuss, and they propose to have a drink instead. Someone mentions the woman that Lai Qingdi lost to Shi Changxing, and he grew upset and threatens to not entertain the person anymore. Jiang receives news that he can get back to work the next day, and he decides to check on the company's reports. At the company, Miss Yaowei sits on Jiang, which makes him uncomfortable, because someone can walk in on them. Someone enters the office to meet Miss Yaowei and Jiang in that compromising position and immediately apologizes to the duo. Jiang complains about Miss Yaowei's conduct, and she tells him that it is only a harmless misunderstanding. Jiang tells her that she should take care of herself as a female so that she will get someone special to marry her, because she cannot continue to work for him for the rest of her life. Jiang tells her that he has classes in the afternoon, so she should not bother with working too much. He gives her with items he bought during his travel, and tells her that he has sent them to her house. When he left the office, Miss Yaowei adjusts her makeup and thinks that Jiang is not bad, and she could possibly make a move on him. Jiang gets occupied with his work schedule and focuses on them. After one of his lectures, he texts Wu Xingxin, and she tells him about her activities while he was away. Wu Xingxin gets suggestive with the text that they can end up in bed, which upsets Jiang. Jiang suddenly begins to wonder what was wrong with all the girls he has encountered recently, and complains that he just wants a normal date like going to the movies, but it has become almost impossible. In the middle of his rant, he receives a call from Yaowei asking him on a dinner date, and he accepts. She tells him that she will send him the time and location of the date after setting it up. After ending the call, Yaowei is surprised that he did not reject her request. At dinner, she thanks him for not rejecting her request for a date and declares that Jiang is hers for the night. If you like this recap, do let me know in the comments, and obviously leave your like too. Do not forget to share with your friends and subscribe. Above all, activate your notification bell so you don't miss the next recap when it drops. Until next time, do take care and stay safe.